and fully. We consider it a duty to provide consistent, relevant, useful and top-quality information and analysis. Our mission is to provide credible, accurate and interesting news programming, bringing news into everyone's homes in everyone's languages. Thank you, South Africa, for relying on SABC News for quality news output and for making us your #1 source of information. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
It's 900 hours Central Africa time on this Tuesday, the 17th of November 2015. Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome to the very first hour. This is Newsroom. I'm Elvis Preston. I'll be with you until 12 o'clock. You have to stay with us as we broadcast live from Alton Park Studios in Johannesburg, South Africa, to the rest of the African continent. But first, let's take a look at all your news headlines. South Africa seeks to improve trade relations with the Netherlands as President Jacob Zuma meets the Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte in Pretoria. Striking workers in Parliament vow to intensify their protest strike by workers at Parliament today after a breakdown in negotiations. And sentencing proceedings resume at the South Gauteng High Court following the conviction of Rovan Krejcir and his 5 accomplices. Those are all your headlines, but before we get into the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate. What's happening in the sports field? A very good morning to you.
Good morning, Elvis, and a very good morning to you as well as to all of our viewers at home. Basically, what we've got for you in the sports is the following. It's day 4 of the second test between India and South Africa, and the rain has stopped. It's just a wet outfield that's delaying play. Also, Shakes Mashaba has made 3 changes to the Bafana starting 11 to play Angola tonight in Durban. It's ATP World Finals time, and Rafael Nadal makes short work of a lackluster Stan Wawrinka in London. And that's what we've got for you in the sports, around about 10:20 or so. Back to you, Elvis.
Thank you, Kendall. That's what's happening on the sports field, but right now, let's take a look at your top story. South Africa will seek to improve trade relations with the Netherlands when President Jacob Zuma meets the Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte in Pretoria today. The two leaders will reflect on political developments in Europe and Africa with a specific focus on Burundi. They will also sign several agreements that include a letter of intent on agriculture. International Relations spokesperson Nelson Kwete says both countries enjoy growing trade and investment relations. Now, those pictures, and for more on the story, we're now joined by our reporter Tumaole Mashlauli, who is at the Union Building. So very good morning to you, Squire, and welcome.
Well, good morning to you too. And it's all systems go here at the Union Buildings, where officials are putting the finishing touches ahead of the official welcoming ceremony of the Dutch Prime Minister, Mr. Mark Rutte. As usual, you can expect much pomp and ceremony and a 21-gun salute, which is obligatory whenever a head of state visits in an official capacity here at the Union Buildings. The red carpet has all been rolled out, and it will then, after that, after the 21-gun salute, the visiting Prime Minister of the Netherlands will retreat with his delegation. He's accompanied by several business leaders from the Netherlands, as well as, of course, members of his cabinet. I think the most prominent being the Agriculture Minister. They will then go and retreat behind closed doors with President Jacob Zuma of South Africa and members of his cabinet. Now, the main issue that will be of importance for this bilateral visit will be the issue of the economy. Of course, the Netherlands and South Africa share very, very cordial relations going back all the way to the dawn of democracy in South Africa, the Netherlands playing a very key role in the anti-apartheid struggle. So those relations and bilaterals have been strengthened and have been maintained over the years. However, on the issue of the economy, both countries share very, very good trade relations. The economy in terms of relations in trade amounts to over 50 billion South African African rand, so it is quite important. And it is very significant that the Agriculture Minister should come at a time when South Africa, the Agriculture Ministry of the Netherlands, should come at a time when South Africa is experiencing one of the worst droughts in decades. So South Africa will be keen, once the drought period is over, to make sure that its exports to Europe bounce back to mitigate the impacts, the negative impacts of this drought. However, there will be other talks that will be held in space, especially when we talk about aeronautics as well as technological relations between both countries. I can tell you that in particular, South Africa will be looking to increase its exports. Currently, we're looking at about 48.2 billion rand in terms of exports to the Netherlands. 77.9% of those exports increased to 27 billion rand in 2000, from 27 billion rand in 2008 to just over 48.2 billion that I just mentioned. So both countries looking to strengthen those economic ties as well as technology. And I can tell you that on the outskirts, on the sidelines of this particular state visit will also be an exhibition of arts and culture that is going to be showcased here in South Africa as the Dutch Prime Minister continues his tour of the country. So this is basically the overview of this particular state visit, and this is what we can expect. Of course, as always, after the bilaterals, President Zuma and his counterpart from the Netherlands will then address the media, and then they will unpack exactly what agreements or what bilaterals were discussed. So with that, I throw back to you in the studio.
Thank you so much to Maole Mashlali. He's at the Union Buildings. We'll keep you updated on the proceedings there. Well, sentencing proceedings of the Czech fugitive Rovan Krejcir and his 5 co-accusers expected to begin this morning in the Johannesburg High Court. Krejcir is accused of ordering the kidnap and torture of Bheki Lukele, whose brother, Dr. Nkosi, is the middleman who was supposed to transport 25 kilograms of tip to Australia. Nkosi has allegedly disappeared with the consignment. Krejcir and his accomplices were found guilty of the kidnapping and attempted murder of Lukele. Now, this is the first conviction against Krejcir in the country. He's on trial in 4 separate matters in South African courts. Now, for an update on the latest on the story, we cross now live to our reporter Gillian Pillay, who's been following the story very closely. She joins us from the North Gauteng High Court. A very good morning to you, Gillian, and can you tell us what we can expect today in court?
A very good morning to you, Elvis. Yes, a very big day for Rovan Krejcir indeed. The stop-start trial eventually coming to the sentencing leg of this matter. What we expect is that the 6 convicted now have to prove to the court why they should get a lenient sentence, and the court will look at a range of factors, and these factors are these pre-sentencing reports that will be submitted from correctional services, where they have been evaluated by a social worker, looking at their background, looking at who they are, looking at them being first-time offenders. They can call witnesses if they want to bolster their argument for a lenient sentence. But as you know, the prosecution will obviously call for a harsher sentence, looking at the crime in the country, looking at Krejcir, who has applied for extradition here, wanting to, since 2007, having set up an empire here, particularly in the criminal underworld. So, the prosecution will look at the implication of Hawks officials, specialized officers who were on Krejcir's payroll, and they will use this argument to really call for the harshest possible sentence. Security is very tight, Elvis, at the moment here at court. We saw a sniffer dog from the K9 unit going into the courtroom a short while ago, combing the area. Krejcir is always surrounded by a very heavy police presence. About 10 minutes ago, he arrived with an entourage, and that's normally a Nyala. It's police vans. He's always surrounded by a heavy police presence. So that is really the kind of sentiment that this court case has been under, where Krejcir has had all these security officials surrounding him, and that's the kind of arguments, Elvis, that we could see from the defense as well as from the prosecution.
Gillian, thank you so much for that update. She'll keep us posted what's happening at the court during the course of the program, so you don't go away. Stay tuned, because we'll give you the latest there. Now, 2 Cape Town universities will remain closed due to violent student protest. The Cape Peninsula University of Technology has instructed all students to vacate university residences by no later than 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. In a short statement, management says the decision was taken in light of the ongoing protests across its campuses. Exams for non-exit courses remain suspended until the 11th of January, while exit-level course students will receive notification by the end of the week to advise on new examination dates. The university has asked staff to stay away until Wednesday, but it's hoped that they can return to work by Thursday. Meanwhile, all academic activities at the University of the Western Cape also remain suspended. Yesterday, 400 final year students had to write their exams off campus. On campus, 3 students were arrested after 2 incidents of arson. Now, for an update on that story, on the state of universities in the Western Cape, we now cross live to our reporter who is at the Cape Peninsula University of Technology, Vanessa Puna. Very good morning to you, Vanessa, and can you give us an update on the latest on both these universities?
Yes, good morning to you too. I'm standing outside the Financial Aid Building at the Cape Peninsula University of Technology's Bellville campus, where overnight a fire destroyed a large part of this building. Behind me you will see furniture blackened by smoke. Earlier on this morning, fire crews are still on scene to damp down the flames that had engulfed this building as protests continue over fees. We do know that some students have also been seen earlier this morning with their bags packed, leaving residences and campus after that communication that you've mentioned from university management, saying that students at residences have until 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon to vacate residences here at campus, since all academic activities have been suspended. Now, the sense that we've got speaking to some students outside the gates of campus who did not want to go on camera or be named, saying that they were not given sufficient time to vacate these premises now that the exams and all academic activities have been suspended here at CPUT. There is still a very strong police presence. Early on, also members of the public order policing keeping a watchful eye not only at the entrance to this university, but also here at this building where I'm standing, where this fire was set and a large part of this building damaged overnight. Early on as well, I spoke to Lutando Tiali Bongo from the University of the Western Cape, where last night again wheelie bin was set alight on the 2nd floor of the Kasinga residence on campus. Student protests allegedly continuing there as well. This morning, reports from that university was that things were quieting down, but there is also still a strong police and also security presence on that campus. So at the moment, all but deserted here looking around the CPUT campus at Bellville. Not too many students seen around, except, of course, this morning seeing a number of students with their bags packed leaving campus.
Vanessa, thank you so much for that update. Vanessa Puna, she's our reporter on the scene there. She'll keep us updated on the latest. So once again, do not move your seat. Now, HOW has vowed to intensify the strike by workers at Parliament today. After a breakdown in negotiations, the strike has entered the 2nd week with no solution in sight. Striking parliamentary staff ignored 2 court interdicts that declared their strike illegal and disrupted parliamentary work. But for state security, institutions like Parliament and the Union buildings have been classified as national key points. We ask you a question this morning. Should protests therefore be allowed on national key points? Once a place has been declared a national key point, you know that security is upgraded and it is a crime to reveal information about its security measures to the public. Now, to talk to us about protests at national key points, we are joined in studio by political analyst Msakolo Mpolase. Very good morning to you, Squire, and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
And also in Cape Town, we have Professor Pieter Vos in Cape Town. A very good morning to you, sir. Are you well?
Yes, thank you very much. Well.
Wonderful. Right, let's start off the discussion. First and foremostly, Mpolase, let's start off with you, Msakolo. Let's get clarity on the issue. National key points, it should be protected by the National Key Points Act. But why are we not enforcing it?
Well, we're not enforcing it, one, because I don't think the protests are there to reveal state security secrets or the secrets of these key points. And also to conflate that argument in that you have a protest at a key point means therefore there's a security void or a security breach is incongruent and something that I don't know how it got to that level. But ultimately, we need to also consider the piece of legislation that gives the executive this right to declare certain buildings, certain sites as key points. It is, I would say it was in the last decade of apartheid South Africa, so that's where it derives its mandate. So its validity is questionable. One can understand the personal harm when it can come, for instance, to the House of the President, to the union buildings, or cases where you have very important people whose security might be exposed. But in this context, protests, the South African Constitution allows you to protest, and belligerent forms of protest are allowed, whether at key points or not.
So whether it's at the key point or not?
Whether it's at the key points or not, because one would say, you know, for instance, if this were, if I were Nahau and this argument was posed in that context, I would even challenge the very piece of legislation that was being used, and also say that the motivations for Nahau or any individual protesting at Parliament, we had the students before, they're not intent on breaching the security or disrupting the work of Parliament. They simply are protesting, and this is the podium that at the time the executive was there, and they wanted to voice their concerns to the executive. So the motivations are vastly different from what the National Key Points Act identifies as punishable offences.
So the National Key Points Act, Professor, what does it say?
Well, the National Key Points Act must actually be read along with the Regulation of Gatherings Act. The Key Points Act is more about creating key points which are supposedly of strategic importance to the country. Of course, that was the apartheid government, so we have to take it with a pinch of salt. And so needs to be specially protected, because if they are going to be attacked or destroyed, it was, in the language of the apartheid government, going to be a threat to the security of the state. But the protest really is regulated not by the Key Points Act as such, but by the Regulation of Gatherings Act, that says that, you know, you have a right to protest, but it will automatically be illegal to protest at two such key points, the union buildings and in a certain precinct of Parliament. And once you protest there, then unlike other protests which are not automatically illegal, it will be illegal, and the police will have the right, after giving you the necessary warnings and so on, to disperse you and first to request you to leave, and then to disperse the crowd that appears there.
But as you talked about Nahau, they are protesting. They're currently disrupting parliamentary work, which is underway. And why are they allowed to protest or stage a sit-in right inside the chamber there?
Well, obviously that is not legal. You cannot disrupt the activities of Parliament, obviously. The Constitution says that you have a right to protest peacefully. So as long as you do it peacefully and as long as you don't disrupt, there cannot be any problem with that, except that the Regulations Act still says that you're not allowed to protest within certain parameters of Parliament. So then it depends on who enforces the law and who decides. There's usually an instruction from somebody with the necessary authority, usually somebody with political authority, who decides whether a protest is going to be broken up or not. And I think that is why we see the different treatment, for example, of the students who came to Parliament to protest and the Nahau workers who came to Parliament to protest.
Mr. Tolo, on that note, how should protests at national key points be handled, which is very sensitive, because Nahau workers are working at Parliament, right? And of course then we see the students storming Parliament. They also stormed the union buildings. How should we handle this and make sure that we have these things in place that can secure these national key points?
Well, perhaps we should go back to that we classify what key points are. And if there is discontent in the country, whether it's a key point or not is immaterial, because people will vent whatever dissatisfaction that they have. I would also just simply go back to the notion of political will. It need not
and the validity of the key point.
Certainly. So it need not escalate to that level. So if you are a minister and you say, well, for instance, the SABC is considered a key point.
Yes.
So you're saying there would never be a strike here, for instance, if workers would be aggrieved. And also how we consider bargaining in this country, for instance. What we often find is that things need to escalate to a certain point by which employers, by which the government actually entertains the requests of workers. So it then becomes immaterial whether it's a key point or not in that environment. And ultimately, we need to also go back to this piece of legislation. To my mind, it is quite problematic that this is a piece of legislation that, as I said, was in the last decade of apartheid, and you knew the environment, you knew what they were responding to in that context. And for this government to use that piece of legislation as, a comprehensive piece of legislation, in effect blocking protests, blocking social discontent around certain issues, is quite problematic. You cannot pick and choose which aspects of apartheid to take on in a democratic South Africa. If people have grievances, those grievances should be attended to, whether it's at a key point or not at a key point.
But surely there's a fine line that we can cross here then, Professor?
Well, I don't think that the line is that fine. I think that the Constitution makes it quite clear that you have a right to protest peacefully, and where better, of course, and where better to protest than at Parliament, which is the heart of the constitutional democracy. So I would be very surprised if the court doesn't find, for example, that those sections of the Regulations Act, of Gatherings Act and the Key Points Act are unconstitutional, because it places automatic ban on protest at the heart of the democratic project. What we do know where the line is that you cannot act in such a way that you're going to threaten other people's safety or property. If you do, clearly that oversteps the boundary, and then is when, also in terms of the Gatherings Act, the police is allowed to act against you after, of course, doing the appropriate warnings and also using the minimum force, which unfortunately the police do not always do.
Certain laws and certain acts are in place in order to maintain law and order. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, of course. I mean, mine is not to encourage destruction or lawlessness. No, not at all. I view that participation in a democratic system will at some point require legal protest, and will in some cases require belligerent protest. And belligerent protest does not necessarily mean destruction to property or disruption of activities. It's just that, as I said, the South African context sometimes is one that requires things to escalate to the level of the sit-ins, to all of these things, to profit loss if it's a private sector, or to, I would say, continued sit-ins or disruptions within the government context. That is sadly how, when it comes to this industrial action. And also I want to return to the point of, in this particular context, Nahau is not seeking to disrupt Parliament per se. The issues relate to wages, bonuses. So it is not what the Key Points Act and certainly the regulations identify as punishable offences.
Now, protest at national key points is not a new thing. Take, for instance, back in 1956, the March Against the Past Laws. Remember that one? Professor, what was different about that march to Parliament and the ones that we see now?
Well, of course, the vast difference is that in 1956 there was no democracy. It was an authoritarian racist state. And now we have a democracy. And so we would think that the seats of the state power would not feel threatened by people exercising their democratic rights. Of course, in 1956, those people who were part of the regime very much felt threatened by people who came to try and exercise their rights, because the people who tried to come and exercise their rights most had no rights. There's a very big difference between the two situations, in that now when people demonstrate, people are not demonstrating to overthrow the government, people are demonstrating to express their democratic opinion, as everybody is entitled to do in a democracy, of course, as long as you do it peacefully and you do not threaten people or property.
Now, lastly, and this is a question for both of you, how do South Africans get a balance between their constitutional rights that they need to protest for and the legitimate demands without disrupting the acts or the act of violence?
I think it's a two-way process, and those South Africans would include those who govern and those who are governed. in that where there are obviously service delivery breakdowns, where there are obviously grievances, those grievances need to be attended to. And they do not need to escalate to a point where we have to discuss whether protests or disruptions are allowed. It should be a more proactive process, both from the citizenry as well as those who govern, because much of this would be dealt with had there been maybe more political will from Parliament to engage and this issue being taken more seriously. What is lacking is political will in terms of the citizenry as well as those who govern.
Professor?
Yes, I think that it's very important for everybody involved to embrace the idea of participatory democracy and to actually, if you are in a position to do so, to respond timeously, as the other speaker said, to any kind of protest action. Because often what happens, it seems to me, is that people feel that even if they do want to express and participate in the democratic process through taking part in protest action, they are completely ignored until such time, of course, as they do something that might not be, strictly speaking, legal, engaged in destruction of property and so on. So there is really a need for people to take citizens seriously and to make sure that there's always a signal sent that you actually do hear people's pain and you do hear people's voices when they speak.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for the discussion. That was political analyst Msitolo Mpulase here in Johannesburg, as well as Professor Pierre de Vos. He's a constitutional law expert who's in Cape Town. Thank you so much for joining me. Mpulase, thank you so much. Now let's move on to other stories making news. Hundreds of people were left homeless and cars were damaged after a hailstorm wreaked havoc in Gauteng and other parts of the country yesterday. Now here are some of the pictures of the aftermath that was taken yesterday. Let's take a look. Look at that. You can see pictures there of water. Finally, the rain came down and there was some destruction followed by that. And our picture of the day, let's see if we can get that. Is that our picture of the day? That we found a picture of the day. In fact, we're just looking at the pictures right now to go through them to see there's some more pictures over there. Well, it seems like that's the viewer pick of the day. Our picture of the day comes from Simamkele Dlakavu, captioned, "We live in a society that normalizes rape, where rapists get away. Students at UCT aren't having it." That's hashtag rape at Azania. That picture there taken from our pick of the day for today. Now let's take a look at some of the front pages around the globe, and as we start off in Europe, the Times report that the mastermind behind the Paris attacks was unmasked yesterday as a Belgian member of the Islamic State who has smuggled himself between Syria and mainland Europe pretending to be a refugee. Moving to New York, the International New York Times says that President François Hollande of France called to amend the constitution to fight potential terrorists at home and for aggressive efforts to eradicate the Islamic State abroad. And finally, in China, the South China Morning Post, police in China have cracked a multinational online gambling syndicate involving more than 500 billion yuan and nearly 1 million registered members. Those are some of the pictures that's coming through, and of course some of your newspapers that you've seen there across the world. Now let's take a look now at what's happening around the world today. We start off in Johannesburg, where sentencing proceedings of the Czech fugitive Rovan Krejcir and his 5 co-accused who were convicted of attempted murder, kidnapping and dealing in drugs are expected to be heard in the High Court. That case was postponed last month as lawyers of the accused claimed that the documents needed for mitigation of sentence were not ready. Now, let's take a break and we'll be right back after that.
The road to greatness is not an easy one. It's rough, tough, and full of barriers. And there's only one way to master it. Never, ever stop. Dauntless, the all-new Audi Q7.
Health Talk, your show on health practice.
The people being empowered with knowledge so that they can change their behavior and reduce their risk of being sick.
How serious is stress at work?
If we don't address workplace stress, that negative stress, then it can lead to burnout and it can lead to depression.
How does absentees affect companies?
The one that's really problematic for employers is the one that is unscheduled.
How can companies organize their wellness program?
Health promotion mustn't just be a one-size-fits-all type of approach. It must be customized based on understanding of the unique needs of that particular organization.
For health tips that will help you to adopt healthy living with Dr. Sillo Mutawung on Health Talk every Saturday.
Welcome back. The Children's Institute in the University of Cape Town released its annual Child Gauge report last week. That report provides an annual overview of the status of South Africa's youth and children. Now, one of the issues that were in the report this year included the intergenerational transmission of poverty and how it affects young people. Now, let's find out from our guest in studio. We are joined by the senior researcher Lauren Graham from the Centre of Social Development at the University of Johannesburg. Well, she's in our Cape Town studio this morning. A very good morning to you, Lauren, and welcome.
Thank you.
Now,
and good morning to your viewers.
Lauren, take us through on how the Child Gauge report was compiled.
The Child Gauge report is compiled each year. Normally it focuses on children under the age of 18. This is the 10th publication of the Child Gauge, and so because the gauge was coming of age, we decided this year to focus on 15 to 24-year-olds, young people coming of age, and to look at what the born-free generation is looking like. It brings together researchers from different universities to comment on areas of their expertise and put together some policy recommendations.
So you're looking at the born-frees, but what is meant then by the intergenerational transmission of poverty in that report?
Well, what we see looking across the essays, and the essays include information on education, post-secondary education, unemployment and health. And what we're seeing is a pretty bleak picture, unfortunately, that young people who are born to parents who live in circumstances of poverty have every chance of falling into poverty themselves, that they access low-quality education that limits their chances of getting into post-secondary education and training, and ultimately falling into long-term unemployment or underemployment with consequent poverty. And that, of course, then gets transferred onto their children. So what we argue in this gauge is it's really important that we look at mechanisms to interrupt the intergenerational transmission of poverty at this key phase of transition in a young person's life.
And how do we do that?
We make various recommendations here. One of the things that is really important for us to look at is social protection. So we see the very positive benefits of various social protection mechanisms like the child support grant and the old age pension on various outcomes for children. But we know that children at the age of 18 exit out of the child support grant, and there's very few, besides basic services, there's very few social protection mechanisms in place to provide some kind of stepping stone to support young people to autonomous livelihoods. There's obviously interventions we need to make at the basic education level, changes that need to happen with post-secondary education and training with a far greater focus on TVET, the TVET system, for instance. In the unemployment chapter, we look at some very promising initiatives from civil society, the private sector, and the state, who are running employability programs outside of the formal post-secondary education and training space that are directly targeted at young people who can't access formal post-secondary education and training. and those are intended to help young people to take that step into employment.
Is that perhaps a suggestion to extend the child grant to a youth grant, and won't that perhaps then turn us into a nanny state?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, and of course there's still a lot of research that needs to go on to see whether we should be extending the child support grant. There's cases for extending it. For instance, if you think of a young person turning 18 in a middle-class family, that young person is not prepared to enter the workforce at that stage. So perhaps a bit of a longer period of financial support might help young people. I don't think that extending the child support grant on its own is going to make much of a difference. At some point, that has to be cut off, and then what do young people do? We really need to be focusing on investing state resources into other support mechanisms for young people. If you look at the Fees Must Fall campaign, what are we doing about making sure that young people can access post-secondary education and training, which means they'll have a much better chance of finding employment? What are we doing to connect young people to employment or entrepreneurship opportunities? So other interventions that need to support young people to take those steps into autonomous adulthood.
Mm-hmm. But what are some of these underlying causes that relate to many young people coming out of poverty or are in poverty?
A lot of it, as we know, is rooted in the apartheid policies of the past, particularly the exclusion of their parental generation from the labour market and from higher up positions in the labour market. And so the Africanization of poverty that apartheid bred in South Africa has a large role to play. But also in post-apartheid South Africa, the way we've addressed youth development has been in a sort of uncoordinated fashion. So we used to have the Limpopo Youth Fund and the Youth Commission. That then became the National Youth Development Agency. We've had various iterations of the National Youth Policy, with the latest one being signed in this year. But we really haven't seen any concentrated and coordinated way of intervening in young people's lives. And so even the NYDA today is mandated to do everything, and therefore can't do much. They don't have teeth to be able to ensure that youth development is happening in a coordinated fashion. We're yet to see we've seen a very nice national youth policy, but we're yet to see what the implementation plan is going to look like. And if we don't get a good implementation plan in place, we risk following the same trajectory for the next 5 years.
Lauren, thank you so much for your time. That was the senior researcher Lauren Graham from the Centre of Social Development at the University of Johannesburg, but she's in Cape Town, in our Cape Town studios. Let's come back here to our studio. Madibeng local municipality water supply issue seems to be stubborn. This is another community, the Makarapa community of Jericho in the northwest, say an intervention by the Minister of Water and Sanitation, Nomvula Mokonyane, has not resolved the water shortage in the area. The community says 8 months after that meeting with government, the community taps are still without water. Now, for more on water-related issues in Madibeng municipality in our studios, we are joined by Kele Mohamisi, the Provincial Administrator of Water and Sanitation in Madibeng. Kele, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Morning to you too and welcome.
First, give us an update. I've given a very bleak picture, but I believe there is some good news there in Madibeng. Tell us about it.
As our Madibeng is now under intervention. And then the issues there, most of them were sabotage in actual fact, because we realized that most valves were closed. And then what we did as an intervention team, we had a task team that went along the systems, and then they found that most of the valves were closed. And then as a result, some areas which were not receiving water for over years started receiving water.
So for many years, these valves were closed and nobody paid attention to it. How is that possible?
Appears so. No, the thing is, the municipality was not aware of the fact that it might have led to the problem. But not all of the places. At times, it was due to pressure because of the supply that supersedes the demand. And then you find that the reservoirs levels are not high enough to push pressure to the underlying areas.
Now, you say it's perhaps sabotage, but who would be responsible for a sabotage like that?
The notion is the water tanker owners.
Mm-hmm. Why would the water tank owners do that? Please explain that for us.
That's business for some people. So you find that if the water reaches the households, then it means there's no business for the water tanker owners.
Now, the national government gave Madibeng municipality about 381 million to upgrade the Brits water treatment works. How far are you with that upgrade?
The overall progress is at about 28% now. And you should remember it's a multi-year project which goes over 3 financial years.
Yes.
So the current phase 1 is for 80 million, which is focused on the quantity.
Now, the heat wave and the drought that we have, how was it affecting the municipality as a whole?
It did affect the municipality negatively because, as I said, the demand went very high. And you should remember, Madibeng population is rising at a very high rate. And then this leads to mushrooming of informal settlements. As a result, tankering is needed because those areas are not formalized. Hence, there are no reticulation that goes to them. And the more we tanker, the more the problems arise because then the reservoir levels are not rising in order to push the pressure to the reticulated areas.
The tankers that has been supplying the municipality with water, and you say there is sabotage and you suspect some of them, are you going to take steps against them?
Yeah, since the intervention, we are in fact with Magali's Water, because Magali's Water has been appointed by the minister as the implementing agent. And one of the mandates is to do away with tankering. So there are some investigations that are going on.
Hartbeespoort Dam, that's the main source of the water in the municipality. But that particular dam is completely green and it looks like it's, the water is polluted. Is it drinkable? Can it be used?
Yeah, it can be used, but it needs treatment. And that's why the plant is currently undergoing refurbishment. The first phase is to expand because the quantity is not enough. But the second phase will look into quality. There's an ozone technology which will be installed in order to deal with the algae part. But in the interim, there are chemicals that are being used at the plant that take away that kill off the algae and subsequently take away the smell.
There was also issues in Motlotlong and Majakaneng. Has that been sorted out?
Yes, Motlotlong is getting water supply now.
So since
because since April this year.
Okay.
Because of the construction that's going on, the plant has been optimized. And then as a result, it produces more water.
In my intro, I mentioned Makarapa and the Jericho communities. What's happening with them?
That's a political one.
Talk to me about it.
There are two groups. There is a group, a water forum, that has been the initiative of the Minister of Water and Sanitation. And then the Makarapa is the group at Jericho. So they both claim that they are the one that brought some changes as far as water services are concerned.
So how's that being resolved, or what is happening to resolve that issue?
There's been a meeting which was spearheaded by the Office of the Minister in order to try and bring the two groups together. There was a preliminary meeting where issues were raised, and then there's a follow-up meeting that's supposed to take place next week, whereby the community will also be involved because the Makarapa claims that the water forum is not legitimate. So the community will be given a chance to choose the group to represent them.
Is there any good news from Madibeng, Mrs. Makasini?
There is at least light at the end of the tunnel because I received messages from Letlabile that areas that have not been receiving water for a very long time are now receiving water. But this is due to the fact that last week the plant was shut off for a day and intensive maintenance was done. And some of the areas that were not functional were refurbished. As a result, the water production went up. And this assists us in pushing up the pressure in reservoirs.
So give me an overall picture. From the 100% in Madibeng, how many people gets water now?
I should say about 45%.
45%.
With 45% received directly from the 2 water treatment plants, and then the rest are augmented by water tankery. And other than that, we do have boreholes in areas like Macau, mostly it's boreholes and Madidi. So boreholes do assist because there are projects that are going on, and the province and the water and sanitation is helping us a lot in funding those projects. And the mines are also coming in. For example, Lonman and Samanco are very active in assisting with the water problems in Madibeng.
Ms. Mohamisi, thank you so much for coming in and joining us here in studio. That was Kele Mohamisi, the Provincial Administration for Water and Sanitation in Madibeng Municipality. The situation looks dire, 45%, and they're still working on it. So let's see if we can get to that 100% in supplying people with water in the Madibeng district. Now let's take a look at what's happening on our Facebook page and see if there's any pictures coming through. Guinea's last known Ebola patient, that's the 19-day-old baby boy, has recovered and has been discharged from treatment center in the capital, Conakry, a health official said yesterday. And let's see what's happening in Cape Town. Cape Town universities will remain closed due to violent student protests. Cape Peninsula University of Technology has instructed all students to vacate university residences by no later than 4 p.m. on Wednesday afternoon. That's tomorrow. And finally, the United Nations has tried to quell a growing anti-refugee backlash after the Paris attacks by again calling for empathy and compassion for the tens of thousands of people fleeing the conflict in their own countries. Now you can follow us on our Facebook page. Just search for SABC News. Now we will take a break and we'll be right back after that.
At Philips, we wake up every morning and ask, how can innovation make a difference to you? How can thousands of LEDs bring the pyramids to life and light up hearts? How can an air fryer make delicious traditional meals with up to 80% less fat? How can portable ultrasound be part of a program to help lower infant mortality in Uganda? Because the only innovation that really matters is innovation that matters to you. Innovation and you. Philips.
Well, right now, let's find out from the weatherman what is happening with Philip Hawkins.
All right, thank you so much. Well, let's start off by taking a look at what's been going on throughout southern Africa. Now, as you can see, at the moment, we're expecting conditions which are going to yield a bit of rainfall through South Africa's eastern interior here. As we look towards the far eastern regions of Botswana, we're also expecting a bit of rainfall there. And, of course, some drizzle extending through South Africa's southern coastline there. Now, that's in relation to a low pressure system, which is currently moving from west to east. Of course, as that does move, it's going to draw in that moisture and it's going to collect in the eastern regions of South Africa into tomorrow. So what we're going to see is a concentration of rainfall into tomorrow over the far northeastern parts of South Africa. We're also seeing Botswana as well as the southern parts of Zimbabwe involved in that rainfall. Good news for areas which have been very, very dry over the past few weeks. So let's take a look at what's going on in terms of the temperatures here for this afternoon. 34 degrees in Pretoria. Temperatures are quite warm in Windhoek, 33-degree maximum. No cloud cover there whatsoever. Walvis Bay also sees a clear day, but only a 17-degree high for you there. As we move a little bit further north, the rainfall is really concentrated heavily over Brazzaville in the Congo. As we move through the central regions of Africa, we're going to see another concentration of rainfall in the western interior there. Kigali expecting about a 60% chance of showers for this afternoon. Moving further into tonight and then eventually into tomorrow, we're going to see that concentration of rainfall dissipating from that the eastern interior, and it's going to begin to migrate west. Of course, the movement itself does not move west, but that begins to dissipate from the east. So we're still seeing very similar conditions through the the eastern interior of Central Africa for tomorrow. Dar es Salaam expecting about a 60% chance of showers, and moving towards the western coast here, Luanda also expecting a little bit of rainfall there. Let's see what's going on in your temperatures here. Now, warm conditions expected, temperatures ranging through the 30s, moving all the way from Lilongwe up towards Mombasa. Now, it's a little bit cooler in the central interior here, Kigali at 22 degrees, and this is the result of very limited exposure to the sunlight there. A lot of rainfall expected as we take a look a little bit further northeast. Now, in the far northern regions here, we're expecting Baghdad to see a little bit of rainfall here. Good news, though, rainfall expected in some very dry areas around Mecca as well. Port Sudan expecting about a 30% chance of showers. Moving into tomorrow, we're expecting that to dissipate for the most part towards Baghdad. Still expecting that little bit of rainfall. Of course, the northern parts of Africa really not expecting too much into tomorrow, but as we take a look towards those areas, we're going to see Tripoli peaking at about 20 degrees for this afternoon. Slightly cool temperatures again as we look along the far northern regions of Africa there. Towards the west, we're still seeing some isolated to scattered showers around Lagos and the surrounding areas as we take a look along that southern coastline there of the far western areas of Africa. Of course, that does begin to affect the rainfall patterns in these areas. Dries up by tomorrow. Conakry might just expect a little bit of rainfall. Lagos, again, expecting only about a 30% chance of showers. Some light showers there. That's where I'm going to leave it for now. Do stay tuned.
That's the weatherman, Philip Hawkins. He will be back a little bit later, so you have to stay tuned here on your favorite channel 404. You're watching Newsroom. A law designed to help law enforcement agencies to track and monitor criminals through the creation of a cell phone database appears to be toothless or even not working. The regulation of interception of communications and provision of communications-related information, or in short, RICA, is being flouted. This as thousands of SIM cards that have been registered fraudulently are being sold on street corners in cities and small towns across the country. Many of these SIM cards are sold for as little as 6 rand, and there's no form of identity or proof of residence required. Now, to talk to us more about this, we joined by Arthur Goldstuck from Worldwide Works. He's in Cape Town. Very good morning to you, Arthur, and welcome.
Good morning, Albus.
What do you make of this latest revelation?
It's not really a revelation. It's just something that's come to light once again following the debacle for MTN in Nigeria, where they've had 5.1 million unregistered SIM cards on their network 2 years after the deadline for cutting off those cards. So that suddenly put the spotlight on unregistered SIM cards, especially in the light of the fact that it's been used by criminals in Nigeria to coordinate activities. So clearly, the spotlight then turned to South Africa to see whether the same thing was happening here. And it's been happening all along.
Mm-hmm. Now, but what is the purpose of people having to have RICA-compliant SIM cards?
There's one very simple reason for it. It's that if any criminal activity occurs in which cell phones are used, you can then trace the users of those phones, or at least you can trace the numbers and who registered those SIM cards. So the idea is, for example, that if there is no unregistered SIM card and every single SIM card is associated with an individual and a crime takes place in a particular area, then they can use their log records and various other techniques to identify exactly who was making calls in those particular areas. If you're using pre-registered SIM cards, then it's impossible to associate activity in that area with a specific user.
Now, what are the dangers, Arthur, of people using SIM cards that are registered in other people's names?
The biggest danger is if the person who originally registered the SIM card allows others to use their card and it is using criminal activity, that person is going to be drawn into the investigation and may well be held as an accomplice or charged as an accomplice to that crime. The real danger, of course, is people getting SIM cards in large quantities and then using them actively and continually in criminal activity without fear of being tracked. And that's the real purpose of requiring the registration of SIM cards. But if you have people in the networks collaborating with criminals and enabling SIM cards that aren't officially linked to particular identities, then of course the criminals have a field day with those SIM cards.
Now, what does this say about our telecommunications sector here in the country, Arthur?
The whole idea of recurring SIM cards is an indication of a sector that is still relatively immature. In most countries, from the start, the moment you have a SIM card or buy a cell phone, it is associated with your identity. And that is the goal eventually in this country and across the continent, in fact. Again, the Nigerian situation is what brought it to light, but it's been an issue all along. Generally speaking, it is working. Generally speaking, most cell phone users have been recurred. They have got registered SIM cards linked to their identities. So what it does prevent is what you might call opportunistic crime, where someone sees an opportunity and commits a crime and uses the cell phone in the course of that crime to coordinate or communicate with accomplices, and then they can be tracked down quite easily. But someone who's a habitual or regular, or let's call it a career criminal, who is going to be using their cell phones, is going to go looking for those unregistered SIM cards. The irony here is that it's fairly well known where you can get those SIM cards, as you mentioned, on street corners, but also these markets in crime mines in Johannesburg, for example, where everyone knows you go into one of the cell phone supply shops in one of those markets, and if you build up the trust of the people there, you can easily get almost any illegal, let's say, merchandise.
Now, how does this affect business? Because especially those people that prefer to do online shopping.
Online shopping isn't really affected by this. Someone who's going to be doing online shopping using a mobile device is going to be a legitimate user, is going to have a legitimate SIM card, because typically with online shopping, you have to use a credit card. So if your credit card is being used in that procedure, clearly you're going to have a registered SIM card as well. So it doesn't really have any bearing or no impact on e-commerce or mobile commerce.
And just briefly, how do we solve this problem of unregistered SIM cards then?
Police have to really see this as a priority crime, because it's usually symptomatic of syndicates at work, broader criminal activity, etc. So it shouldn't be seen only as, oh, someone's got an unregistered SIM card, big deal. In fact, it is a big deal because it's at the heart of a tremendous amount of criminal activity and, as I said, criminal syndicates. So bust the illegal SIM cards and you also cut the teeth of the criminal syndicates.
Arthur, thank you so much for your time. That was Arthur Goldstock from Worldwide Works talking to us about the dangers of pre-registered SIM cards that are sold in many parts of the country, maybe yours too. Let's take a quick break and we'll be back right after that.
I'm Peter Ndoro.
And I'm production Chetty Miller, SAB Miller, Anheuser-Busch InBev. It's something that I need to learn to say more often.
Will together produce around a third of the world's beer.
It is a mouthful.
Have you ever considered skin bleaching? Nigeria tops the list of African countries with 77% of its women bleaching their skin.
Now I can see that it is not good because it affects my face and some of my body parts.
Thousands of Arab Israelis and Palestinians participated in a big rally.
Flight MH17 was shot down by a Russian-made missile.
How those chips may fall is a prediction best left to the currency of time.
That's Primetime News, Africa Journal, and Your World on SABC News.
Across the globe, locally, and on the entire continent. Every second, every minute, and every hour. There's always a breaking story. We commit to giving you the most important, significant, and interesting news. That's why it is not a surprise that more Africans are tuning to SABC News to find out what is happening. Because when news break, we've got you covered. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
SABC News. We report, contextualize and present news and current affairs honestly, fairly and fully. We consider it a duty to provide consistent, relevant, useful and top quality information and analysis. Our mission is to provide credible, accurate and interesting news programming, bringing news into everyone's homes in everyone's languages. Thank you, South Africa, for relying on SABC News for quality news output and for making us your #1 source of information. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
It's 10:00 hours Central Africa time on this Tuesday, the 17th of November 2015. Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome to the second hour. This is Newsroom. I'm Elvis Preston. I'll be with you until 12 o'clock. You have to stay with us as we broadcast live from our Auckland Park studios, Johannesburg, South Africa, to the rest of the African continent. First, let's take a look at your news headlines. South Africa seeks to improve trade relations with the Netherlands as President Jacob Zuma meets the Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte in Pretoria. Striking workers in Parliament vow to intensify their protest strike by workers at Parliament today after a breakdown in negotiations. And sentencing proceedings resume at the South Gauteng High Court following the conviction of Rovan Krejcir and his 5 accomplices. Those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what he has in store for us on the sports field. A very good morning to you.
Good morning, Elvis. Thanks very much. A lot has changed since we last spoke earlier on this morning, but before we get into it, let's greet all of our viewers as well from the sports desk. This is what we've got for you in terms of the sports. Day 4 of the second test between India and South Africa, and the rain has stopped, and play is expected to resume in just under half an hour at 10:30 a.m. And Shakes Mashaba has made 3 changes to the Bafana starting 11 to play Angola tonight in Durban. Also, it's ATP World Finals time, and Rafael Nadal makes short work of a lackluster Stan Wawrinka in London. That, in a nutshell, is what we've got for you in terms of the sports. So make sure you stick around for that at around 10:20 or so. Back to you, Elvis.
Thank you, Kendall. He will be back a little bit later, but right now, let's get into it. Your top story this hour: South Africa will seek to improve trade relations with the Netherlands when President Jacob Zuma meets the Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte in Pretoria today. The two leaders will reflect on political developments in Europe and Africa with a specific focus on Burundi. They will also sign several agreements that include a letter of intent on agriculture. International Relations spokesperson Nelson Krejcir says that both countries enjoy growing trade and investment relations. Sentencing proceedings of Czech fugitive Rovan Krejcir and his 5 co-accused expected to begin this morning in the Johannesburg High Court. Krejcir is accused of ordering the kidnap and torture of Becky Lukele, whose brother, Dr. Nkosi, is the middleman who was supposed to transport 25 kilograms of tuck to Australia. Nkosi has allegedly disappeared with a consignment. Krejcir and his accomplices were found guilty of the kidnapping and attempted murder of Lukele. This is the first conviction against Krejcir in the country. He is on trial in 4 separate matters in South African courts. Now, this week highlights World Antibiotic Awareness Week, and the world attempts to step up the fight against antibiotic resistance. The World Health Organization yesterday released their latest findings from a new multi-country survey that suggests that people are unsure about this major threat to public health and are unsure how to prevent it. Antibiotic resistance happens when bacteria change and become resistant to the antibiotics used to treat the infection that they cause. Overuse and misuse of antibiotics increase the development of resistance. Joining us now via Skype from Cape Town is the co-chair of the South African Antibiotic Stewardship Program, Mark Mendelson. Mark, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning, Elton, and good morning to your viewers.
First and foremostly, what were some of the most alarming findings from the latest findings in the report?
I think the report highlights some major misconceptions about how we should be using antibiotics, and also some of the issues around antibiotic resistance. So antibiotics are only used for bacterial infections, yet the report shows widespread across many countries the misconception that antibiotics are used for, or should be used for, the common cold, for flu, and for other viral infections. And in the community, that's one of the major drivers that's increasing antibiotic resistance because of this misuse, this inappropriate use. And that's a very strong message that we need to get across. Other messages, that important misconceptions were that antibiotic resistance only occurs if you use multiple courses of antibiotics. That's not true. Only a single course of antibiotics can cause resistance. And it highlights the need for us to get important messages across to the public and really have a much more robust dialogue around antibiotic resistance and when we should use antibiotics with the public, both in South Africa and globally, as this is a global public health crisis.
What were some of the limitations in this report, and how will the findings of this survey allow South Africa to improve the situation here?
I think the limitations are actually made clear in the report, in fairness, and they are that, you know, the actual number surveyed in each country. There were 12 countries, 2 from each of the world's regions. In Africa, that was South Africa and Nigeria. In South Africa, there were 1,000 people polled. It was web-based. So there are limitations to the actual, if you're trying to generalize this to the whole population of South Africa. But I do think it does highlight some very important issues. It's going to help us because the whole issue around World Antibiotics Awareness Week really is around increasing public awareness and awareness in our healthcare professionals. And if this allows us a springboard to really have a much more frank dialogue and an understanding, then it's really going to help how we're going to go forward with this problem.
Mark Mendelsohn, thank you so much for that. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, and as you heard there, it's a very serious issue worldwide. Right now, let's go to the Union Buildings, where the President is meeting the Netherlands Prime Minister. As you see, just stepped out of his vehicle and is getting onto the red tape. Let's go there live.
Well, President Jacob Zuma, as well as the Prime Minister of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, Mr. Mark Rutte, now arrived at the Union Buildings and are coming out for the beginning of the official program here for the official visit of the Prime Minister of the Netherlands. As we look behind us now here at the Union Buildings, they're just stepping out, both President Zuma and the Prime Minister of the Netherlands, Mr. Mark Rutte. And this is the ceremonial part of the program. And we can expect to have the 19-gun salute, which will ring out across the capital in just a few moments. Of course, earlier I had mentioned that there was going to be this gun salute. It's not going to be a 21-gun salute because those are mainly kept for of visiting heads of state. So what is going to be happening now is President Zuma and Mr. Rutte coming down the red carpet, and they are now going to also inspect the ceremonial guard of honor that has been set up here ahead of the 19-gun salute. It is very, very important in terms of this visit for both countries, which share very cordial bilateral relations. As you can see, President Zuma and Mr. Rutte walking down from the stairs, coming down right to the front of the Union Buildings here, where they will look out across the city and look out across the ceremonial guard which has been set up to welcome Mr. Rutte. These countries share very strong economic relations. The Netherlands is of particular interest to South Africa as a trade and investment partner. Now, trade between the countries has increased very consistently over the years from 27.1 billion rand, this is according to government statistics, in 2010 to 48.2 billion rand in 2014. So that's about a 77% increase in trade. And now, of course, the national anthems of both countries are about to ring out here in Pretoria. Standing by. Now, the Prime Minister of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, Mark Rutte, is now making his way down towards the southern part of the Union buildings, where he will inspect the Guard of Honor, which has been set up to mark the beginning of his official visit to South Africa. Now, of course, once all the ceremony and pomp is complete, they will then get back to the real business, and by business I mean quite literally, of the visit. The Netherlands enjoys very cordial and very strong economic ties to South Africa. I can give you some of those stats which are very, very crucial to this particular visit. Exports were valued at 14.2 billion rand in 2005, and they increased to 27 billion rand in 2008. That's close to 50%, 47.8% as we put it to you. And this is one of the key instruments that drives the bilateral relations between both countries. And this will be at the core of the discussions between the Prime Minister of the Netherlands and President Jacob Zuma and members of his cabinet, the economy at the center of this particular state visit. And now, once the both leaders have finished with the official ceremonial part of the state visit, then the officials will retreat behind closed doors, and they will then talk about how to further strengthen these political and economic ties. The Netherlands has invested about 40 projects in South Africa. And this, of course, direct foreign investment estimates to about 15.4 billion rand. That is what is at stake here, and South Africa will be keen to improve and increase on this particular investment to see how much further it can grow the economy and as well as strengthen ties with the Netherlands. Of course, we know that one of the key exports to the Netherlands would be from the agricultural sector, and this visit comes at a time when South Africa has been experiencing one of the worst droughts that it has seen in decades. So this will be key amongst some of the discussions behind closed doors to see how these bilateral relations can improve on exports. So I'm going to step out of shot a bit. We're about to now go to the end of the particular ceremonial part of the visit. Before we go to the talks bilaterals, the national anthem of South Africa will now ring out at the Union Buildings here in Pretoria. This will be then marking the beginning of these bilaterals. So we are just moments away now from the national anthem of South Africa to be played by the band here. I will then stand down very briefly as we wait for the national anthem. Yes. Yes. Right, now with the national anthem of South Africa having just been concluded here, we now see President Jacob Zuma and the Prime Minister of the Netherlands beating South Africa's senior government ministers who have been here to welcome the Prime Minister, Mr. Mark Rutte of the Netherlands, President Zuma there introducing him, and of course they're exchanging pleasantries as we speak. This all forms part of the ceremonial part of the visit, the pomp and the ceremony following the national anthems. So these ministers, as well as the Prime Minister of the Netherlands, will have much to discuss in terms of strengthening these bilateral ties. Now, let me elaborate a bit about what I mean by these bilateral ties. According to the government, there are strong business components of the official visit. And of course, the Deputy Minister of Transport will also have key negotiations with her counterparts in the business delegation from the Netherlands, because South Africa and the Netherlands enjoy very close aeronautical and space and technological as well as transport relations. Now, if we look at what would be discussed on the table according to the program, education is high up on the agenda. Of course, there's strong cooperation between Dutch and South African universities. They have historical ties which go back decades, well over 100 years, according to the government of South Africa. And then in agriculture, a statement of intent would have been signed between the Ministry of Economic Affairs of the Netherlands as well as the Department of Agriculture and Rural Development here in South Africa. So now President Jacob Zuma is now meeting the delegation from the Netherlands. As you can see, they're shaking hands, smiles all around, indicating, of course, the strong bilateral relations as well as the close bond and friendship enjoyed by both countries. If I can go back to the point of, in terms of agriculture, right. Now, this official state visit has, this official visit has now also come at a time when there has been very unfortunate terror attacks which have struck in the Netherlands, and this is one of the reasons why in Paris, I beg your pardon, not in the Netherlands, in Paris in Europe, and this is one of the reasons why this visit has been cut short. It was initially intended to be a bit longer, but because of what happened in Paris, it will now be cut short to just 2 days. So with all intents and purposes, the meeting will make sure that they touch on all points. However, now as we look, both leaders are now going behind closed doors. Well, now this is marking the official end of the pomp and ceremony. As you can hear the band to my left, to the right of your screen, just off shot, now playing some music to mark what is now the second part of the program, where both leaders have now gone behind closed doors to go and kick off the official part of the visit, where they will be talking about bilaterals. And later on, we can expect a press conference, which we will be taking live here on SABC News, where the leaders from both countries will then detail exactly what was discussed and whether any agreements, part of those agreements that we already know about, have been reached. And with that, I'm throwing back to you in studio.
That's our reporter Tumole Mshlali at the Union Buildings as the South African-Dutch trade relations is taking place there. We'll take a break and we'll be right back after that.
The road to greatness is not an easy one. It's rough, tough, and full of barriers. And there's only one way to master it. Never, ever stop. Dauntless. The all-new Audi Q7.
ABC News, we report, contextualize and present news and current affairs honestly, fairly and fully. We consider it a duty to provide consistent, relevant, useful and top quality information and analysis. Our mission is to provide credible, accurate and interesting news programming, bringing news into everyone's homes in everyone's languages. Thank you, South Africa, for relying on SABC News for quality news output and for making us your #1 source of information. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
Sentencing proceedings of the Czech fugitive Rovan Krejcir and his 5 co-accused is expected to begin now in Johannesburg High Court. Let's go there live.
Colonel Ramala attended at Germiston Police Station and took over the docket dealing with the matter. He indicated...
So when did you know about the funds?
My Lord, at the time I was in regular contact with Mr. Krejcir as he requested
when did you know about it?
When did I know about it?
Yeah.
On the 29th, my Lord.
You knew? 29th?
Yes. 29th
and when were they seized?
Of October, on the 30th.
So you knew on the 29th of October money was coming? And on the 30th it was seized. And when did you bring your application?
Well, my Lord, initially the police indicated that there should not be a problem in releasing the funds, but first they wanted a warning statement from the person arrested, and they wanted certain information.
In other words, you couldn't. They weren't going to hand over the money. So when did you bring the urgent? Well, you obviously knew if they wanted all these things as a prerequisite to handing over the money, they were not going to hand it over. Am I right? Until they had that.
No, my Lord. With respect, the documentation showed that the origin of the money was a legitimate source, that it was not money laundering as was
Mr. Krejcir,
suspected by them.
when did you know that you could not get the money? You knew on the 30th because they had it.
We did not know that they were not going to release the money again,
When?
my Lord.
When did you think they were going to
Eventually,
release
the following Thursday, I was informed by...
The following Thursday is the 7th?
Yes, by...
So the 7th of
the
November...
investigating officer, when we had an arrangement...
There's no contact between the 30th and the 7th, is that right?
There was regular contact with the investigating officer.
So why didn't you bring an application?
Well, my Lord, they indicated at that time that there wasn't a problem, that they were simply busy, that they had to attend meetings and so forth. It was never ever indicated.
Mr. Krejcir, you knew that you had to prepare the trial for sentence. Am I right? Every day that passed, you knew is one less day for you to prepare. Am I right?
That is so, my
And
Lord.
you just let it go.
No, my Lord.
No, you didn't take steps to compel the release of the money. Until when?
I did, my Lord.
Until
I sent
when?
a letter to the investigating officer.
When did you bring an application to force them to release the money?
On previous Monday, my Lord.
Which Monday is that? Last Monday, the 12th?
Yes, indeed. The 12th, yes, my Lord.
Yes, and I think I received that application because I was in urgent court sometime during the week. I think it was on Wednesday or Thursday, am I right?
Yes. If I may be
So nothing happened with it?
explain, my Lord.
Just wait. So nothing happened with it. It wasn't treated as urgent. I handed it over to another judge because I was conflicted. Did you go there? Did you have the matter heard urgently?
My Lord, if I may be permitted to...
Can I ask you just to answer this question? Did you
I was
make
guided by
arrangements?
counsel,
Would you
my
just
Lord.
wait? Did you make arrangements for this matter to be heard urgently?
The application was brought on an urgent basis, but I was...
You took your
informed by
time. I think it was
counsel.
heard on Friday.
Yes, my Lord.
So why didn't you have it heard on Monday? Why didn't you have it heard the previous week?
My Lord, if I may be permitted to respond.
You may.
I inquired from the investigating officer what the position was and whether the money would be released. The initial indication that I got was that there was no problem and that the funds would be released. It was only on the Thursday that the investigating officer informed me that there was now a letter in...
Which Thursday?
I don't have my calendar with me, my Lord, but that was the Thursday before the application was brought. That would have been approximately 10 days ago.
A week ago.
At the time, the investigating officer indicated that there wasn't a problem, that he was involved in meetings, that he needed to get to docket, and that he would meet me at the police station, that we can make arrangements for the item seized to be returned. Only on the Thursday, my Lord, there was a letter, according to the investigating officer, placed in the docket, which was from a different police officer from a different unit, who now apparently became involved, and we indicated that the money cannot be released, that it must be sent to the liquidator. That was the first that we were informed that the money would not be released. We then immediately addressed a letter to both the curator as well as the minister, as well as the legal department of the police and the investigating officers, requesting them to urgently release the funds and giving them until the end of Friday, close of business, in order to undertake to release the money, failing which we would bring an urgent application, which we then did launch on Monday as we received no response. I was advised by council.
Set down for when?
It was set down for the Friday morning.
So why didn't you set it down for the same day? You knew this matter was going on.
Yes.
You have known this. Just wait. You know, when did I convict the accused? I think it was in August.
Yes.
28th of August?
Yes.
Right. The matter was postponed until the 11th of September. All accused said they'd be finished all aspects of sentence in one day, and I think it was set down for the 11th of September. Is that right?
Yes.
On that day, Ms. van den Heever, I think, was ill. Am I right?
She was not present. Yes,
I think she was unable to attend because she was ill. She had some medical issue. The matter was then postponed at the instance of counsel, at the instance of accused one who was unable to carry on until 12th of October.
Yes, indeed.
And on the 12th of October, it was again postponed because the accused were not ready. Some accused, by that stage, I think, wanted reports. Other accused were not ready. Generally, they were not ready on the 12th of October. Am I right?
Yes.
And it was postponed, I think, until the 28th of October. And on that occasion, the reports which the other accused, I think, had asked for had not come, and there was still an issue with representation with accused one. Am I right?
Yes.
So now, and then, from then it was postponed till today.
Indeed, so yes.
Right. So, accused one is known since the 26th of August. This matter needed to run, and that he needed to get his position and his affairs in order. Am I right?
Yes, indeed, so my lord.
As far as the 11th of September is concerned, I think it's unexpected. Possibly, I'm prepared to accept that his counsel couldn't come to court and deal with it. But he still wasn't ready. Am I right?
Yes, my lord.
And so on, the matter is dragged until today. We're now the 16th of November, I think. Would it be? 17th of November. So we the whole of September, whole of October, whole of and half of November. And he only gets the money sent across on the 27th of October. This is the man, just wait, it was not. This was the man who told us in court when he was cross-examined about his activities during the day that he had millions I think in the United Kingdom, he said. I can't remember, perhaps you'd remember better.
I was not present when he testified.
Well, you've probably looked at the record. He's the one who said, I have millions. So where are these millions? Why are they not here? Why has he not made arrangements, at least since September, assuming that there was then this issue, that the issue at that time was not financial? Assuming it was not financial.
My instructions in that regard, and I did take it up with accused number one, my lord, is that his mother is the only one who is in a position to make money available for him, has been in the ICU, suffering with pneumonia, and that it has been extremely difficult to get her to the bank in order to arrange a transfer. That was done, and it was, with respect, done timelessly.
Why was it done?
For the funds to be here in time for Advocate Colby to be properly briefed and to be ready to proceed.
Well, you could have brought an application to get them funds. Why was it not urgent if Colby was briefed for you to have the money available to hand her the money? Was it the 30th of October?
My lord,
was it the 30th?
Yes.
So the moment that date lapsed, Colby was gone. Is that your case? That's what you said. She had to be paid by the 30th. So the monies were here on the 27th. It was urgent to deal with the monies to obtain Colby by the 30th. Why didn't you bring the urgent application? When was the money taken? The 29th. Immediately for the 30th.
Money was taken on the 30th, my lord, and I was advised that it would be returned to
the 30th
it was released on the Monday at court, and there was no indication that we were not going to release the funds.
Why didn't you bring it on? So was she prepared to wait until the 31st, Colby?
My Lord, at that stage, I was not in contact with Colby.
What I'm putting to you is this. What I'm putting to you is a simple thing. Colby's cut-off date was the 30th. The money came on the 30th. You had to get the money on the 30th. Why didn't you bring the urgent application on the same day?
Well, my Lord,
that's the day you needed to have money. You didn't need undertakings to pay. You needed money to pay Colby.
Well, my Lord, with respect, we needed to obtain the necessary documentation to show the legitimacy of the funds, where it originated from. We obtained the necessary documentation. It was shown to the investigating officer.
When?
All indications were on the 31st.
So why didn't you bring it on the 31st?
The documentation was given to the investigating officer.
Why didn't you bring your application then? That was...
Well, my Lord, there was no
16 days ago.
indication that they were not going to release the money. There was no indication that they were not going to release her. In fact, I was advised by the investigating team on the Saturday that if we provide them with the necessary documentation, they would meet me at the police station on the Sunday, and that she will probably be released. And we accordingly awaited the release. I can only apologize for not bringing it at an earlier stage. We did not know that they were going to refuse to allow the funds to be released, my Lord. It was also difficult to obtain proper instructions from the accused and to consult, as he's in prison and not in a position where he can make phone calls and give instructions.
And why didn't you do the parallel medical, obtain the medical information that he required that we've never heard of until today?
My Lord, there was
notwithstanding repeated requests from each, just wait, notwithstanding repeated requests of each accused to say what evidence he required to be here and what assistance, if any, there was required to get it all here. And which would the comment by counsel on each occasion was, we have got everything we need, we'll be fine, we're going to run. Until there came the issues concerning the state providing the reports. But as far as one is concerned, he was fine. He didn't need evidence.
My Lord, if I may respond, the first I heard of the aspect of medical evidence was the afternoon of the urgent application last Friday, the 13th of November, when I consulted with Mr. Du Plessis from BDK. At all times, accused number one was uncertain as to which attorney he was now going to proceed with. Mr. Du Plessis, I understood from him, was on record for him for the past 6 years, and he did not want to likely make a decision in changing his legal team, although he approached both myself and Mr. Du Plessis with a view of preparing for the proceedings today. It was from Mr. Du Plessis that I gathered the information that the medical evidence will have to be placed on the record. At that stage, I did not have the proper mandate to act in this matter as yet. Although he indicated to me that he instructed me to deal with certain matters, Mr. Du Plessis from BDK was still on record until today. I have done, with the greatest of respect, everything within my power. I might have brought the urgent application a bit later than it should have been brought, due to being brought under the false misapprehension that the funds was going to be released.
Well, it's easy to make these statements from the bar. Where's your affidavit?
Lord, I have not opposed to an affidavit to that. The fact remains, my Lord, that the applicant wanted the services of senior counsel Sita Colby. I did, after Saturday, when the prison authorities refused me an opportunity to properly consult, do everything in my power to find other counsel, as that was the first that I heard that there was a problem in getting Advocate van der Heever back on board. I believed at that stage still that there was a very good prospect of her coming back on record for accused number one once the financial issues were sorted. And I therefore proceeded on the basis that I believed that I would be able to negotiate and resolve issues between the two of them in order for us to be able to proceed today. And the Advocate van der Heever who indicated that her willingness to be hear and to proceed with the matter today. And it's on that basis that the urgent application was brought so that we can have sufficient funds, that we can place Advocate van der Heever in funds so that she could proceed. I did not foresee at that stage that there was no possibility of her proceeding with the matter due to a conflict between the two of them, as I was not aware of the nature thereof. I believed it to be simply a financial issue.
And how long do you need to prepare?
My Lord, my issue is that it's my instructions that accused number one wants the services of Advocate Colby, who's available the last week of the first week in December. So it will be my request.
I beg your pardon?
It will be the last
the
week.
First week of September, December?
The first week of December, yes, ma'am. Then she will be available to deal with this matter.
If she's involved in a matter which Mr. Mashiane is involved and he's not running the matter, presumably she could be here.
My Lord, I'm instructed that by Advocate Colby that due to the fact that she did not receive payment timelessly,
the 31st,
yes,
the 31st, just wait,
yes.
The 31st of October.
Yes.
So from the 31st of October, Colby is lost to you. Am I right?
Please, my Lord. But she is available.
And there's no other counsel which you obtained, even tentatively, assuming you could release the funds which you said you believed you could get released subsequent to the 31st of October. It's just stood in a banks.
The only counsel that we could get was Llewellyn Morland, who was instructed to start preparing on the legal aspects.
When did you get him?
Assist
when did you
immediately on Friday, the 13th of November, after the successful.
So what did you do from the 31st of October when you believed each day that you'd get your money to obtain counsel?
Well, I was advised by counsel that we might have severe difficulties in getting the money, but it was by no means a clear-cut case.
Oh, you knew that there were trouble, so then why didn't you bring the application?
I did not know that, my Lord. I was advised by senior counsel, Advocate Dorflin, and he became involved.
When did he come involved?
On the 12th, my Lord, as he was involved in other matters.
Mr. Krejcir, let's just go back to the 31st of October. You had Colby.
Yes, ma'am.
That was the last day of Colby. After that, Colby's gone.
Yes, ma'am.
The 1st of November, you had no one. Am I right?
Except that I believe
just
that
wait.
Advocate van der Heever.
Well, you made no effort at that time to find out if she in fact could come.
Yes, the problem is not from
just
her
wait,
side,
just wait. I'm asking you what you did. You didn't go to on the 1st of November and say, I want you.
I could
did
not
you or
do
did
that,
you not? You did
I
not.
Cannot.
You did not.
My Lord, I could not. I needed
Right.
to consult with.
Just wait. You did not.
First in order to get instructions.
Mr. Rovan, let's just leave that aside. On the 1st of November, you had no one. 2nd of November, no one. 3rd of November, no one. 4th of November, no one. Right up until Friday, you had no one. You'd not consulted with the accused. Just wait. You'd not consulted with him between the 31st and when was it, Friday? Am I right?
My Lord, yes. Unfortunately, I was in court on a daily basis, and there's difficulties in arranging legal visits, and we had to attend to the urgent application.
So because you're in court, well, you weren't attending to the urgent application at that time. It wasn't even motivated until after the 7th.
We were running around meeting with the investigating officer who promised to give us a letter, which he said had some impact on whether the money can be returned or not, and the letter was only given by the investigating officer a day later. I submit
a day later, Mr. Krejcir. A day later doesn't help you from the 13th to the 14th. It helps you from the 31st of October to the 1st of November. Am I right? Because you can then brief a counsel, do something. You've got time. But you did nothing. You stood by and let this whole matter run.
Of a junior advocate who could start preparing.
When? Who was that?
Llewellyn Morland.
But you got him when? The 13th of November?
On the same date that, well, my Lord, before the 13th, I could not do anything. I did not have any money.
But you could get it before then.
My Lord, that was merely a possibility.
Right.
It wasn't a...
Well, I hear you. That's what you say. And no affidavit from you, Mr. Rovan.
Apologies for
And you've had a long time to prepare an affidavit and hand it up and to enable the state to be in a position to deal with all of these things. Yes, nothing. So there's no evidence before me.
These facts evolved over the last few days, and as late as yesterday afternoon, I was trying to convince the commanding officer of the prison in order to make the medical file available, and I was endeavouring to persuade accused number 1 that we should make use of the services of Advocate van der Heever in order for us to be in a position to proceed to it. So I did do everything in my power in order to be in a position that we can proceed.
And what was accused doing? What was accused 1 doing? He was the man who had to do things. He was the one who had to bring the money. He was the one who had to take steps to obtain action. He was doing nothing, was he?
My Lord, with respect,
and there's no affidavit, just wait, and there's no affidavit from accused 1.
He's incarcerated, he has very little contact with the outside world, his family is not in the country, and he's only allowed a very short, limited time for telephone calls. And I submit that in the circumstances, on behalf of accused number 1, we have done what was possible to do in order to attempt and endeavour to be ready to proceed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do any of the other accused have anything they want to say about whether they're ready to carry on or not? Ms. van der Heever, are you ready to carry on?
My Lord, my position is the following. We wish to carry on. However, by yesterday afternoon, I've not had any communication from the attorney of record. I then ascertained
Who's
from...
Who's your attorney of record?
Mr. Krejcir. I then ascertained from the family of accused number 2...
No communication at all?
No.
Not concerning 1 or 2?
No. I then
And since when is the last time that he contacted you?
He's not contacted me.
Ever?
No.
Ever since August?
No. I then ascertained... I then ascertained, my Lord, from the family of...
Are we talking about the same Mr. Krejcir who's just spoken?
Yes. I then ascertained from the family of accused number 2 that there was apparently people that saw accused number 2, and they were quite desperate that the matter proceed. I thereupon approached the ethical committee of the Bar Council and asked whether we could proceed pro bono. I then got permission to do that, my Lord. My personal assistant then phoned the 2 people that apparently drafted reports, spoke to them, and they said they're not prepared to either fax or email us such reports, and they will be at court this morning with said reports. I approached Mr. Mashiani, my learned friend for the state, and he's as yet, and I think he confirmed, also not in position or possession of
So you're waiting for the report?
Waiting for the report, my Lord. My Lord, there's just one aspect that I...
And whose report is it? Is it the court's report, or is it your report, or is it the state?
It's a welfare officer report, my Lord, and there's also a probation officer's report.
But I mean, what I'm asking is a different question.
The family...
Are they my reports, or your reports, or the state's reports?
My understanding is that the welfare officer's report should be my report, but as I've already placed on record, she was not prepared to send said reports through. There's one more aspect, my Lord, that I wish to place on record, and that is the reason why I was not here on the first date is because I underwent an emergency...
You were ill, I remember.
I had an emergency operation. I just wanted to make it plain for the record.
I've always said that, as far as I know, there was a medical reason why you were not here. Right, so that your position is you can't carry on.
I can't carry on, except we wish to carry on, my Lord. I'm prepared, and that's why I've got a junior here. If these reports are made available, my junior can sit in while the matter proceeds, and I can, in fact, consult with the witnesses and see how far we can get at this point pertaining to sentencing.
You can't run a trial like that.
As the court, please.
My Lord, after your orders on the previous occasion, we have received 3 reports. 2 pre-sentence reports, one in regard to accused 3 and one in regard to accused 6. We've also received what's known as a victim impact report concerning the complainant, Mr. Lekele. The reports which are still outstanding then are the reports concerning accused 4 and 5.
So you said 2 and 6, you mean 3 and 6?
3 and 6, my Lord, I beg your pardon. The understanding has been, since your order.
Just wait. And are those the only reports you wanted? Welfare reports?
It's not the only ones I wanted.
Pre-sentencing report?
No. The other two are, remember you, my Lord, you ordered that reports be compiled regarding accused 3 to 6.
Yes, what I'm asking is this, are you short 2 reports
I
only?
short 2 reports.
Not 4 reports, not 6 reports. In
2
other words,
reports.
they're not double. I understood
No,
they were double.
No.
The 2 reports.
There are two. They are
accused.
2 pre-sentence reports, which I believe is the court's witness to will deal with this.
I don't know if it's my witness. I'm just asking how it comes to be.
Something practical for the future. But the fact of the matter is, I can carry on if those witnesses are available, if you want to call them.
Well, I'm not calling witnesses.
Well, they are your witnesses. I'll be for the benefit of the court, then, Lord, it's a matter of
well, it's just a question of whether they're entitled to refuse to hand over the report to you in advance of coming here.
Well, we have,
which I'm not sure.
We have received 2. But the understanding was they will be available today, and according to Mr. Majani, he's been not approached with any reports. I've not been approached with the other 2 reports.
Yes, but the reason I asked the question of Ms. van den Heever was simply to ascertain whether or not, if it was her report, there was an obligation at her request to give it.
Yes.
Or whether if it was someone else's report, the person could refuse to hand over the report until they came to court.
The fact of the matter is, if the reports, all reports were here, I could have continued with all.
No, you can't continue.
But I can continue with 2, if the witnesses are here. My Lord, I once again stress it's my clear and strict instructions to urge avoidance of any further delays. My clients want the processes which are involved in this trial to proceed with.
But it's a fact that you can't carry on without the report.
Indeed, sir.
So, Mr. Krejcir?
Yes, ma'am.
How did you contact Ms. van den Heever to discuss her availability?
My Lord, due to circumstances which I do not wish to discuss on record in open court, there has been some breakdown in communication. I have communicated via Mr. Duplessis, BDK, as well as via the client.
You didn't personally speak to her? You personally did not make contact with her?
No, Mr. Duplessis.
My understanding was,
Mr.
Krejcir, my understanding from what you previously told me was that you were the person who was dealing with her to get her to come back. It might be an incorrect impression.
No, this was not Mr. Duplessis was hired.
Thank you. Mr.
Yes, please, the court. My Lord,
let's just deal with let's start with the back end of this.
Indeed, my Lord, yes.
No reports. Where are the reports? Do you know where they are?
They've just been handed to me, my Lord. I just hesitate. The reports are all the outstanding reports.
Which reports?
The pre-sentencing reports
for everyone.
For everyone, my Lord.
Who's everyone?
My Lord, the pre-sentencing reports that were previously handed to me, and which
just tell me which accused they for, Mr. Machine.
The ones that I got just today,
just tell me which accused they are for.
For Ntorwani, who is accused number 4, my Lord.
4.
Lupondo, accused number 2.
2.
And for Mia, accused number 5.
5. So you short 3 and 6?
No, my Lord. Previously, I forwarded the reports in respect of accused 3 and 6 to my learned friends. They are in possession thereof.
So the reports for all of the accused from 2 up to and including 6?
Indeed, my Lord.
And why were the reports not handed over to the respective accused counsel,
my Lord,
prior to the matter being heard this morning?
No, they were just handed to me just as when Mr. Khorovi was addressing the court today.
You told me that, Mr. Mashiani.
Yes.
Why were they not previously handed to the accused counsel so that the accused counsel, as is customary in these courts, could prepare for the sentencing procedures.
My Lord, on the previous occasion, the court will recall when the pre-sentence reports were not available, there was a request from the state to the social development to try and speed up the process because they were given short notice to prepare the reports. Therefore, my Lord, the indication was that they will be available today. And indeed, I have been placed in possession of the reports just this morning, my Lord. I was fortunate to have received the other reports sometime last week, my Lord, which I then promptly forwarded to my learned friends for the other accused, my Lord.
So they only came around today?
Yes, my Lord.
What date did they bear? So the report for 2.
They are undated, my Lord, these other reports. Apologies, my Lord. I see they are dated 17 November. My apologies. Which is today. Yes. So this is in respect of the 3 reports. But as I indicated, the other reports, they are dated 9 November, which I forwarded to my learned friends on the same day. So as regards the reports, my Lord, they are available. I'll make sure I get enough copies to hand to my learned friends. And for that purpose, my Lord, I won't have any objection if the matter stood down for my learned friends to go through the reports.
It takes long.
Sorry, my Lord.
It takes long to deal with these matters.
Well,
what do you say about accused one?
There was never a request for a report in respect of accused 1, my Lord.
No, I'm talking now apart from the reports, but the issues raised by accused 1.
No, my Lord. For
an application for postponement.
I oppose the application, my Lord.
Well,
yes, my Lord. I submit, my Lord. It's very clear that the goalposts keep changing. Since August, 24 August, when the judgment was given, my Lord, there was never any indication that accused number 1 will be having any issue pertaining to the medical evidence that he is going to lead in this matter, my Lord. We knew all along, my Lord, that the accused is ready to proceed with the sentence in this matter, except that my learned friend, Advocate Van den Heever, was unavailable for the reasons that the court is well aware, my Lord.
Who was unavailable?
Was unavailable.
Who?
Advocate Van den Heever. Yes. Therefore, my Lord, the only reason why we could not proceed with the sentence on the first occasion was the unavailability of counsel for accused number 1. Then on the second occasion, my Lord, that was when we were informed that there was a request for the pre-sentence reports.
Which come to end today.
Indeed, my Lord.
So
and
all of the other postponements actually become irrelevant.
Yes, my Lord. And those were basically the reasons why we could not proceed with the sentencing. Today, my Lord, we are informed of very different reasons, and which do not form part of the reasons why the case was postponed or had to be postponed on the previous occasions. Therefore, my Lord, I submit, and I've made myself very clear on the previous occasion, that this application by accused number 1 in particular, to have the matter or the sentencing proceedings not proceeded with, my Lord, is just a waste of time, and my Lord.
How can you say that?
I submit, my Lord.
How can you say that? Is he not entitled as a matter of law to prepare his defense?
He is, my Lord.
Is he not entitled as a matter of law, if part of his defense is to produce medical reports, entitled to take steps to obtain them?
On that one, my Lord.
Is he entitled to take steps to obtain them?
Yes, my Lord.
And if he can't obtain them, is he not entitled to require postponement to get them?
My Lord,
is he not entitled to a postponement to require the production of those reports?
No, my Lord, my submission is that since 24 August, only today, 17 November, we learned that that is the reason why accused number 1 cannot proceed with the sentence.
Well, it appears that it's a recent thing.
Yes, that is my problem. That is why I submit, my Lord, that it's a recently fabricated reason not to proceed.
How can you say that?
Because then, my Lord, it would have been placed on record on the previous occasion that these are the reasons why we are not ready to proceed.
Mr. Mashiani, if you prepare your case on basis X, and during the course of the events prior to the hearing, you discover that you have basis Y also, are you not entitled to take steps to produce basis Y?
You will, my Lord, but you let the court know.
When must they let me know? When they found out on, I don't know, whenever it was Sunday?
No, but we have not been told that, my Lord. On the previous occasion...
Well, not under oath, but we've been told it.
Yes. On the previous occasion, when we postponed the matter, we should have been informed. For instance,
we didn't have it then.
We were informed.
You not received that advice then.
No, but we were informed of the reasons for the postponements on the previous occasions, which are on record. Now, today, when those issues have been resolved, we are further informed of other reasons
they
why...
haven't been resolved. The issues regarding the reports are partially resolved until today.
Yes.
And now, when must they consult? When must they obtain the evidence which they require, which is referred to, which might arise out of the report? When must they do that?
But they're not asking
Just answer that question. When must they do that?
They should be given chance to go through the reports, to consult.
So then we can't carry on, am I right?
But we can stand the matter down, madam.
Until when?
Well, until 2 o'clock, if the court...
Until 2 o'clock?
Yes.
Are you going to get a witness between now and 2 o'clock?
No. The witnesses are here.
Let's just be realistic over here.
I am, madam.
Right.
So
if there's something in the report which requires witnesses or evidence or whatever it is, they can't get it by 2 o'clock, they can't get it by tomorrow, they can only get it whenever they get it.
But then, my Lord, we'll be told that as a result of these reports that we got, there are outstanding issues that needs to be probed.
Can be. Can be.
Yes, but we can't assume that that will be the issues, that there will be issues to be probed, my Lord. For instance, my Lord, as I already indicated...
If you were likely to be sentenced to a long term of imprisonment,
yes,
would you not want to be properly prepared?
I would want to be, my Lord.
Exactly. And now you're forced to prepare between lunchtime and tea time. Or tea time and lunchtime, sorry.
My Lord,
would that make you happy? Would that be fair to you? Would that give you the rights to exercise your constitutional rights to obtain evidence, prepare your case, and adduce the relevant evidence at court?
I submit yes, my Lord.
You submit yes?
Yes.
Between tea time and lunchtime?
Yes. And if by lunchtime we are told that there are issues to be probed, then we'll tackle that. But, my Lord, for now, we know the defense has been in possession of some of the pre-sentence reports already on the 9th. And there are...
So can I proceed with 1 or 2 accused?
No, I'm not saying that, man.
Well, then it doesn't matter that they got them.
No. But all I'm saying, my Lord, there appears to be no issues to be probed from such reports.
We don't know.
But we haven't been told of any reason.
Because I haven't asked it.
No, my Lord. I submit, my Lord. The defense clearly indicated they are ready to proceed, except that there are outstanding reports, which I submit. Such reports are available. The matter can be stood down, my Lord, for my learned friends to go through the reports and proceed after lunchtime, my Lord. I submit. Those are my submissions, my Lord. I therefore oppose the application.
Where's your reasoned basis to say that I must ignore the medical procedures, I must ignore the delay of the money?
But, my Lord...
Where is your authority to say that that would be a proper approach?
No, my lord. There's
well,
no...
What no? Where's the authority?
There's no authority for that,
There must be.
No.
Did you look for it?
No.
Why not? You're the counsel for this.
Because
state.
we're not...
Why didn't you prepare your case? You knew that there was this application.
No,
you
man.
can't not have known it.
No.
You didn't know?
No, not at all. The first time I knew about this application was when Mr. Krejcir stood up to address the court.
Not the postponement application. They get the money back from the police
No,
application.
No, man.
You didn't know about it?
No, man.
The state didn't know about it?
No, man.
Through Mr. Ramohala?
Not at all.
He knew about it, according to Mr. Krejcir. He was the very person dealing with the matter, Mr. Ramohala.
But I was never advised, my lord, that there's any such
About
issue.
whom I wrote an extensive judgment, did I not? About his suitability as a policeman. Do you remember that judgment?
Yes, my lord.
And what happened? He didn't advise you. Is he Captain Ramohala? He's not captain anymore. What's he? Is he Captain Ramohala?
Colonel, my lord.
Colonel?
Yes.
He's Colonel Ramohala?
Yes.
So Colonel Ramohala, about whom I wrote that he should not be a policeman because he behaved so badly, and I demonstrated his conduct in a long judgment. He's not only been promoted, but he doesn't tell you what's happening in matters that directly affect you.
Well, my lord, such matters did not affect this case at all.
They affect this case if there's no money. What did he think he was doing holding on to the money when the accused wanted to carry on the matter and he needed the money to brief his lawyer?
Well, I wouldn't know about
and
that.
And then what happened to the application? Do you know what happened to the application?
No, man.
Was it fought out? Was there a judgment given? Or did the police just hand over the money?
My lord, as I indicated, the first time I got to know about these issues is when Mr. Krejcir addressed them.
Do you need time to ask, what's his name, Colonel Ramohala? Where is Colonel Ramohala?
He should be around, my lord. He's around.
Perhaps you should get instructions from him.
Well, my lord, that wouldn't serve the purpose because the
issue... Could I stand this matter down for 30 seconds and you can get instructions? Would that be enough?
No, my lord.
It's a small matter. It's not like preparing for sentence.
No, my lord. It wouldn't change the price of the cheese because the issue has been resolved. As Mr. Krejcir indicated, it has been resolved, my lord.
By consent. Was it resolved by consent, Mr.
Yes, ma'am.
So they just handed over the money. They held the money until the last minute. This is what the police did. They took the money accused one needed to fight the case, according to Mr. Krejcir. They stalled Mr. Krejcir by promising every day to hand it over until it was very late, and then he brought an application.
Yes, I learned my.
And then eventually, at the last minute, they handed it over by consent. Not even a fight, not a court ruling, no submissions. They were entitled to do it, nothing. So you think that that's how the state should treat an accused? The state represented by senior authority policemen.
My submission, my lord, is, as we speak now, the issue has been resolved.
Beg your pardon?
The issue has been resolved around the money, around the release of the money.
When did they get the money?
Mr. Krejcir indicated they got the money on Friday, my lord.
Well, they got the right to it.
Sorry, my lord?
They got the right to get it. I don't know if they actually got it. And when are they going to get counsel between Friday and today?
Surely, my lord, I submit, my lord, this is clearly a delaying tactic because...
How can it be a delaying tactic? Did they instruct Colonel Ramohala or whoever it was to hold on to the money?
No.
So then, how can they delay? How can you impugn delay to them?
Because, my lord, as Mr. Krejcir addressed the court, my lord, the reason why the defense is not ready today is, amongst others, because they don't have the medical evidence.
Well, they don't have money. The first problem is to get money. If they had money, they could issue a subpoena. You agree?
Yes, my lord.
Then the person will come. So if we subpoena that person, do you think that person will come by 2 o'clock?
By tomorrow, my lord, that person will be here.
Oh, yes. That's what you think.
Yes. And then we should be able to...
Strange thing, that person can just refuse to cooperate and hand over records to which the accused is entitled, because they his records.
No, my lord.
And then suddenly, no problem. We'll give them to you. You can have them today, instantly. The same as the money. Don't take the money away, hold on to the money. When the crunch comes, hand the money back.
As I understood, Mr. Krejcir, my lord, that person will be here if there is a court order to that effect.
Yes.
So if the court makes that order, we should be having that particular person here by tomorrow. That is how I understood.
We should, you hope. Maybe.
We should, my lord, we should. That is how I understood Mr. Krejcir to be addressing the court.
Well, you know that's not how it works.
Sorry, my lord.
You know that person's not going to be here in an hour or 2 hours or by tomorrow.
That I do not know, my lord.
Then how do you know the person will be here by tomorrow?
Because
how can you confidently say, that person will be here if you don't know?
Because Mr. Krejcir addressed the court.
I'm not running a trial piecemeal. And I'm not running a trial little bit.
Yes.
So we start, we run for 10 minutes, we stand down, we fetch a witness, maybe we stand tomorrow, we run another 5 minutes. No. It's not how high court trials run.
Yes, ma'am. Those are my submissions, my lord. I've got nothing further, my lord. Yes, I've got this.
Mr. Krejcir, in your reply.
I would just take exception to the allegation of the recent defabricated version, and I am in possession of a letter which I addressed this morning to Mr. Shabanga, the head of the prison, placing on record what transpired during the meeting in his office, and attaching a copy of the subpoena duty statement that we intend issuing for the witness to be present.
By when? By when?
Well, my lord, I haven't put in a date because I do not...
so how can I react to Duca's statement with no date?
I've merely indicated to him that we will then request for the subpoena to be issued. Obviously, we will have to give a witness a reasonable time, otherwise we will not be able.
And how long is a reasonable time?
Well, I submit approximately 2 weeks now.
You know, special arrangements were made for this matter to run during the course of this week. This matter was fitted in to my otherwise busy schedule and involved the moving away of certain matters from me and the inconvenience of other judges in the division who picked up work that I was due to have done, which I'm not doing. Why did you not contact this court to say, this is the problem? You never contacted my clerk. You never approached the prosecutor, as I understand him. You did nothing.
Lord, I did send the mail to your Lordship's registrant to advise of the urgent application that you bring in.
I know about the urgent
application.
application.
That the first accused did not finally make up his mind as to who was going to represent him today. So I was not on record. So it made it quite difficult for me. I did
well, that's true, I understand.
I did attempt to do whatever I could in the time available to find counsel and the witnesses necessary in order to proceed.
My Lord, just on the side issue, I would request the court.
Well, you also never came and told me, listen, I haven't got my reports.
I'm ready to proceed, Lord, if my reports are here, I can proceed.
Well, you may not be able to.
I will do my utmost to have this matter commence whenever, from this point on, my Lord. I'm just not sure whether the persons who compiled the reports are here. I haven't seen them. Therefore, I would request your Lordship, if the matter stands down or is postponed, to order these persons be in attendance on the next occasion. There are 5 reports I'm looking at. Whether it's 5 different people, I'm not sure. Apparently, there are 5.
Do you need to cross-examine them?
I need to question them, yes.
Thank you. Ms. Vanadief, I didn't ask you because I don't know if you're involved in this part of the thing, but you also didn't get a report.
No, my Lord, I still haven't.
But you only came back on board recently.
Yes.
Can you cope with getting a report immediately?
My Lord, apparently there is a report available. I need to go approach accused number 2 about the social work report. May I ask, I see it's tea time, that we take the tea break. I also need to sign some documents where the attorney is waiting for me to sign it outside of court. So if this is an appropriate time, I would appreciate it.
I just don't know how I overcome these other issues. Right, I'll adjourn for tea. First, the accused must be taken down.
The road to greatness is not an easy one. It's rough, tough, and full of barriers. And there's only one way to master it. Never, ever stop. Dauntless. The all-new Audi Q7.
South Africa seeks to improve trade relations with the Netherlands as President Jacob Zuma meets the Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte in Pretoria. Striking workers in Parliament vow to intensify their protest strike by workers at Parliament today after a breakdown in negotiations. And sentencing proceedings is resuming at the South Gauteng High Court following the conviction of Rovan Krejcir and his 5 accomplices. And we'll go live to the court proceedings as soon as that adjournment is over, so you have to stay tuned. Meanwhile, Bloemfontein and several towns in the Free State will introduce water shedding if the drought continues. The announcement came as part of the interior that had their first good rains in weeks. Water shortages in most parts of the Free State have reached critical levels, with only 25 days of supply left in some places. The chairperson of the Provincial Joint Operations Centre, Bupana Kompela, says water shedding will be implemented in the next 4 days unless it rains. The Weather Service predicted rain for the next 7 days that might change that situation. For the latest on the situation in Bloemfontein, we joined in our Bloemfontein studio by the General Manager of Mangaung Metro Municipality, Kwandile Kadama. Mr. Kadama, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Good day, Alvin, and to the viewers.
Now, we know that South Africa is going through a drought and it's a very terrible situation. What is the latest in your area? You had some good rains over a weekend or so?
We didn't, Alvin, unfortunately. But what is happening is that, yes, we did impose water restrictions in the last 4 months, and the progress there is very much impressive, because what we have encountered is that there is a cooperation between ourselves and the members of the community. We have started enforcing the water restrictions, because if really you don't adhere to the tips that we have given out, we are definitely taking steps. But it's impressive, because people are beginning to say to the city, yes, we have seen somebody, my neighbor, wasting water, taking pictures, sending to us. And the initiative of Putana, the MEC Putana Kompela, is that even the SAPS will go out there and assist in enforcing and ensuring that people do use water sparingly. The intention is really not to persecute members of the community, but to show them the seriousness of the drought that is actually happening in the city, in the province, and obviously in the country, because the issue of water is really everybody's responsibility, making sure that you save water, making sure that you live within what you have, and that's exactly what we are doing as the city.
So you indicated earlier there was no rain, not a drop, since even yesterday when we had some rain in Gauteng.
Unfortunately, Alvin. And look, there have been a number of initiatives by broad members of the community. Amongst others is that the members of the mayoral committee are holding church services. The last one was held at Naval Hill by Councillor Pongolo and the crew there. And they are quite, there's quite a lot of initiatives that members of the community are actually taking, just to make sure that at least the Almighty there brings some drops on Earth, on planet Earth, because it is a challenge, really, that all of us. And unfortunately, as the minister would put it, water is not, there's no alternative to water. So all that we need to do is to make sure that we engage into initiatives that will save what we have. One other thing that we're doing best in the city is making sure that our maintenance plan is in place. We are making sure that we attend quickly to pipe bursts. We're making sure that those people that are out there who give us reports on the water that is just being wasted through a pipe burst or any other means, we are trying to work on our turnaround times. Because another thing, Elvin, which could be a problem of most municipalities, is turnaround times, because we do not have unlimited capacity as municipalities.
So what are you doing about that? If you don't have the capacity, how do you then cope in sorting that out in terms of wastage?
No, please. Elvin, please get me right. We do not have unlimited capacity. The capacity is there. But if you are to get, say, pipe bursts all over the city, what do? You can only rely on the members of the community, but also making sure that you try to live within your means and making sure that you combat that unnecessary wastage of water. But what I was trying to say is that the situation would differ from one municipality to the other, because you'd get those municipalities with low base, low tax base, that do not necessarily have all the necessary equipment that you may need. And what do you do in that situation? So I've since realized that the Ministry of Water and Sanitation is also making that type of intervention. The Premier in the province has actually interacted with the minister, and I'm sure at the level of the city itself, we are doing a lot of work with regards to making sure that the maintenance plan is in place, because, Alvin, without you making sure that you have a maintenance plan, it means even the little that you have will still get lost.
Now, payments for municipal services has always been a problem in various municipalities. Have you got a similar problem like that in your area? Because people don't really sometimes want to pay for their water. You've also mentioned the low tax base in some areas, which is a challenge. Are the residents paying their part?
Well, that question is tricky, because there is an element of homogeneity into that statement, where you find that in terms of your employment rate in the society, how do you deal with that problem? Those that are paying, how do you mobilize them to continue to pay, so that at least they keep the financial situation of the municipality sound? And this is what we're actually doing. Not so long, the executive mayor went out on a roadshow, making sure that he mobilized those people who are potential ratepayers. But also, what we are doing at the level of the city is that we are making sure that we are providing necessary basic services, so that when you pay, Alvin, you know that you're paying for what you see. And I can tell you that in terms of infrastructure development within Mangaung Metropolitan Municipality, it is being driven by the executive mayor, and we're comfortable that really things are beginning to change in the city. In the last, in his term, we have been able to inject the necessary amount of money in making sure that there is development within the infrastructure, and particularly on the water infrastructure development, because if you can look at the type of reservoirs that have been built by the city, you'll be impressed at the work that we have done so far. And this is what we want to do, and making sure that you actually impress those people who are committed in paying their rates and taxes, but also beyond that, in making sure that you keep these investors coming into the city itself.
So are the residents now adhering to the instructions by yourselves to spare water or to use water sparingly?
No, definitely. Of course, there are those pockets where you'd find that people do not necessarily adhere, but we are comfortable because you'd remember when water restrictions were imposed, part of the things that the minister was saying is that at least you should be able to reach 15%. And I'm safely told by the engineering department of the city that we are at least at 13.8% in terms of what the minister would see us achieving. So we are comfortable, but of course there's a whole lot of work that has to be done. One other thing that the executive mayor has been able to successfully implement, it is the communication strategy, making sure that you engage the community, making sure that they understand through your public awareness, your public education, and we have enforced that space, because if you are not going to educate the community on the seriousness of the lack of water within our communities, you won't be able to achieve what you want to achieve. So we are investing a lot of efforts with regards to communications, so that at least our people understand the magnitude of this problem.
Mr. Kadama, on Sunday you are hosting the Sports Awards there in the city, Mangaung. Will you be able to manage without water?
Well, look, water is there for use. All that we need to do is to use it sparingly. We used to be water-wise, and I'm sure as people come into the city, they'll be able really to be to use water, and we're having enough for our visitors, and we continue to urge even visitors themselves to make sure that they are water-wise, they use water sparingly, they do all the necessary things. You don't get into the shower for 30 minutes, you don't get into a bath that is it's flooded and so on. So those are simple things that we must also even teach people who are flooding into the city. And this is the responsibility even of the hospitality industry, because if they are not going to do that, what we said as the city is that even the private sector must begin now to play its role. We have engaged the stakeholders at large, the universities, the business itself, and we continue to do that. But also we're saying to hospitality industry, teach those people who are coming into your spaces, so that at least we achieve a little bit of saving within the water itself.
Mr. Gadana, thank you so much for your time and giving us that update. That was the General Manager of Mangaung Metro Municipality, Kwandile Kadama, on the line. Now we'll take a break and we'll be right back after that.
We live in a digital era, and the number of Africans with mobile phones is rapidly increasing.
Twitter use is predominantly being done on smartphones. This is a very African phenomenon.
Here, there are constantly new innovative ways to make the internet more affordable. With that, we're seeing protests against governments proposing methods to limit access. On Network, we give you information about all of this. We also have new computers, games, and robots.
Join Siphumelele Zondi on Network every Sunday at 19:30 CAT.
Your destiny is not determined by the township you come from.
The one place we will find movers and shakers is in the township. It's just that they're diamonds in the rough and some of them don't even know it.
Being young with no experience in business is a challenge that Bulelani took upon himself.
I was motivated by the prayer. I was motivated by the love.
To be a novice in business was tough, but experience made him a businessman of note.
It took me 7 years to make my first million. I've got all the scars to prove that I started with nothing.
A journey well traveled.
For me, that is the one major thing. The ability to touch other people's lives. Nothing goes beyond that.
Join your host Puleng Mulebati on Bopilong every Saturday at 5:30 p.m.
The disaster team in Limpopo has not distributed relief material to families affected by storms at Hoedspruit on Sunday. Scores of houses were flattened, roofs were blown away at the Oaks, Finale and the Willows villages. Farmers in Hoedspruit started counting their losses this morning caused by hail. SABC reporter Michael Moringa was in Hoedspruit to report on the damage, and he joined us from our Polokwane studio.
The relief has not reached the affected people in the area. We're talking about 3 villages, as you have mentioned. We've got the Willows, we've got Finale, and also the Hoedspruit area, the Oaks, and the farming community. They have been waiting. We're talking of the storm that hit the area on Sunday afternoon, late afternoon. We went there yesterday to check on the extent of the damage. It was really, really bad, but the municipality people, the disaster management team, was nowhere to be seen. I was on the phone this morning to check if ever there is any progress from the people on the ground, and they've said that they are still waiting for relief. And as it stands now, there is nothing happening. The disaster people said they'll be going down to the people to check if they are in need of anything. Things like tents and food parcels, they have not been delivered. They are still waiting.
Now, so what you're saying is there's no support from the municipality?
Yes, the word yesterday that went around was that relief materials in the form of food parcels, blankets and tent will be delivered late afternoon. When we called this morning, we were told that they are still waiting. The mayor, the Maruleng mayor in the area, went to check the extent of the damage, and the affected families were promised that early this morning they will be yesterday they will be receiving something, but up until now, when I'm speaking to you, they are still awaiting for the relief material. They don't have anything.
Were there any people that were injured or any fatalities?
Yes, 3 people were rushed to the hospital immediately after the incident. 2 have been released. They were treated and released, but unfortunately, 1 is still at the hospital. That is what we have at the moment. It was only in the residential area in the 3 villages that I have mentioned, but in the farming community, there were no injuries that were reported.
We've also learned that some schools were also damaged there. Mike, is schooling affected?
Yes, it's indeed correct that schooling has been affected, but fortunately, learners are now writing. In one of the schools that we've been to, part of the roof has been blown away. So learners are now accommodated in one block that survived the storm. So what they are doing now is to try and exchange classes. When matriculants are writing, they will be given first preference to go and write. The other grades are then writing after. It's only that they are not attending as usual. Otherwise, it could have been disastrous for them, because we are talking of the roof that has been blown off, the ceiling that fell into the school, and the yard itself is a mess. So fortunately, they are not writing. Teachers are managing the situation.
Now, farmers are also said to have lost crops, fruit and their property destroyed. Did we have a look at how serious the damage is to those properties?
Yes, it is very serious. They also, like in the villages, their properties has been severely damaged. Roofs blown away. Their properties is soaked in water, in the water. But of most important is the fruit. In the Hoedspruit area, there are a lot of citrus farmers, mangoes in particular. We spoke to one farmer by the name of Mr. Luki van der Vuren. In his farm alone, he lost mangoes and property at the value of between 6 and 8 million, and he's just It's just one farmer amongst hundreds that are affected in the area. So the damage, it's quite big. And also, we've got tunnel farmers, those who are dealing in crops such as your green, red, and yellow paper, the cucumbers. The tents have been severely hit by the massive stones. The tunnels have been broken, and you know, in things such as your green papers and your cucumber, for them to grow, they need a certain temperature. Because of the situation, the tents are in tatters. It's still windy, it's still raining. They cannot direct the required temperature that they want. They cannot control it. So in essence, they have lost their produce. They could only save some few stuff that they were trying to take into their packaging area when we were there yesterday. But the rest of the stuff is damaged. They are also talking about millions of rands, and those in terms of those tents, it's something that they import. They need to import the material that they use to construct the tunnel. So it's a situation whereby they will only be able to get their farms back on track. Earliest will be the end of January or beginning of February.
What is the latest word from the authorities, very briefly, Mike?
Yes, I was talking to them this morning. The disaster team, it's meeting as we speak. They are hoping that by 1 o'clock they will be done. It's then that they will go back to the area again. But what worries the people most on the ground is that they have been waiting for 2 days now. There's nothing happening. The municipality, the disaster team, it's pretty much aware of what is happening or what of their situation on the ground, but they have not gone to the people to give them what they need most in the likes of blankets, food parcels, and tents, at least for them to have that shelter for now, because the weather does not look good.
Good morning, welcome back. I'm Kendall Makhamat, and I've got your sports on Newsroom. Now, a spate of failed drug tests in Kenya's running heartlands has sparked fears that the country could be the next to be suspended from World Athletics over doping violations. This follows the suspension of Russia over the weekend after it was accused of state-sponsored doping.
In Kenya's lush Rift Valley region, famous for producing champion runners from high-altitude training camps, there are fears of a ban following a warning by a top official. Kenya's Olympic Committee Chairman Krejcir met with World Anti-Doping Agency earlier this month and began sounding alarm bells at home. He said Kenya faced a 4-year suspension, including from the 2016 Rio Olympics, unless it tackled doping more seriously.
If the Kenyan Federation and the Kenyan government are not strict enough, are not ready enough to intervene the doping issue, I think if IAAF and will really take an action, if IOC will take an action and maybe ban Kenya, I think it will be so unfortunate.
Earlier this year, reports by a British newspaper and German broadcaster alleged that athletes who won a fifth of Kenya's 92 Olympic and World Championship medals between 2001 and 2012 had suspicious blood results. Athletics Kenya has for years dismissed claims of widespread doping as attempts by foreigners to destabilize the world's greatest running nation.
As Athletics Kenya, our policy is very clear. We do not condone doping. We will not hide anyone who's caught doping. Of course, we have to give them what we call due diligence. We have to do due diligence. We have to give them their right to hearing. But most importantly, our rules do not allow doping. And anyone caught doping, there is no way out.
Kenya in September announced plans to criminalize doping and the efforts to speed up that process. On Friday, the government said the Anti-Doping Agency of Kenya, first set up in 2013, would be beefed up. Pesing Katlu, SABC News.
And so it was that last week we spoke of the impending banning of Russia from all things athletics. Since then, a blanket ban has been imposed on Russian athletes, and now we look a little closer to home. We look at Kenya, who've been threatened with as big a sanction as a 4-year ban for lax and inefficient anti-doping processes. Earlier, I spoke to Mark Omar, a renowned sports journalist focused on athletics. And we started by talking about the principle of consistent action by the IAAF and WADA.
The principle still remains the same. Those who are guilty, be dealt with. Those who are innocent, should not be punished. What they did with Russia is wrong because it's collective punishment. So the same thing will apply to Kenya. We don't protect anybody who does something wrong, but we must not punish innocence.
Exactly. Like we've got the likes of David Rudisha, Wilson Kipsang, who've recently been hitting the headlines over the last couple of months and years, and they've been painted with the same brush as Rita Jepto, for example.
Yes, exactly. And this is, I can see a situation where there will be litigation, because I don't think the Kenyans are going to take it lying down. Sorry, I'm a Kenyan, but I'm not saying that because I'm a Kenyan. What has happened in Russia was wrong. And you can see, subsequent to that, the president of the Russian Olympic Committee had a meeting with the International Olympic Committee president early this week, and they came out with a communique. This is now the latest this week. And it was agreed that those Russians who have doped and have found to fail will be sanctioned. But those who are innocent can still go and compete at the Olympics. So based on that meeting which was held between the IOC president and the Russian Olympic chairperson, there is hope for the Russians. And I think the Kenyans should also stay hopeful. Athletes must stay clean. But this blanket punishment that President Sebastian Coe is trying to go with is wrong.
Just a quick question in terms of a point of clarity. So the Russian athletes who are found to be clean will be competing?
Well, that is what they've said in the communique. Yes. Remember that the International Olympic the Olympics is run by the IOC, not the IAAF. There is a second report coming out at the end of December, and already Mr. McLaren, who's one of those commissioners in WADA, has hinted that there is a crack between WADA and IAAF, and IAAF is going to be found wanting. Now, that danger is that if it goes the Russian route, IAAF might be told, excuse me, stay out of the Olympics. And many athletes are already worried on social network. So I think it is wise, and it's more defendable, it's a more tenable position if you punish those who are wrong and protect the innocent. This is what we have been saying consistently with the Russian thing, and we'll say it with the Kenyan thing, and we'll say it with any other country.
No, I think that's a fair point of view, and I think a lot of people will be taking that up to take it forward. Corruption in athletics Kenya has been touted by some as being part of the reason for this current situation in Kenya. By corruption, there have been accusations that senior athletics Kenya executives have been dipping into funds that came from sponsors.
Yes, specifically it's Nike. And the accusation has been against David Okeyo. He was a long-serving Secretary General and now is Vice President. Now, a docket has been opened because Kiprono Kiptum is supposedly the whistleblower. The Kenya police have taken the docket. They are investigating. Now, the Kenya police, ultimately, the National Police Commissioner of Kenya is answerable to President Uhuru Kenyatta, not Sebastian Coe. Mm-hmm. So let that process go there. If we enter into that, we are speculating.
Very interesting, very interesting. We go back a little to Russia. Andrei Barinov, he's the Russian athlete agent who wrote to the IAAF Ethics Committee in April 2014. And his deposition really was confirming what the Sunday Times, the British Sunday Times, and the German broadcaster had said, that there were a lot of blood samples that the IAAF had actually not taken care of and not investigated properly that were suspect. Yes. And a lot of them came from Russia. But he was also insisting that Kenya and Ethiopia need to be looked at as well.
Yes, there have always been those queries. But when athletes go and run, and you test them there and then, and you don't find them wrong, they're innocent. Now, what the Minister of Sports in Russia also said this week is that, yes, those Russians who have committed offense be punished, the innocent ones be left. But he said that there were 150, he mentioned a figure, 150 other cases which the IAAF hasn't looked into. In fact, not long ago, there was even an indication that one of them is a British athlete, not so long ago. Competitive. So I'm wondering whether Sebastian Coe will punish the whole of the British team because of one athlete who committed wrong earlier. Because we must be consistent.
Absolutely.
When we penalize people for doing wrong. And that is why I say separate innocent from the guilty.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's a universal principle.
One last question before we let you go, sir. Should we be expecting another bombshell, this time from Ethiopia?
So far, you see, we must go with evidence.
Yes.
Ethiopia and Kenya have produced the best long-distance runners since the 1950s. It's not something that is happening now. So, but if there are people who have cheated, let them face the music. I think the real bombshell is coming with the second WADA report, which is coming at the end of December, where WADA is now saying where the IAAF is wrong, and Sebastian Coe is worried.
Wow, can't wait for that one. That should actually be very interesting. I want to thank you so much for having come through, Makoma.
Thank you very much, and this is an ongoing story, so anticipate a lot. Today we have just talked about things in athletics. Wait till the football one comes, because Sebastian Coe's name is also there.
All right, he left us on a cliffhanger there. Now, with that said, we're now crossing back to live pictures from the South Gauteng High Court for the resumption of sentencing of Rovan Krejcir and his 5 accomplices. Let's take live pictures from there.
By His Lordship's brother, the Honorable Deputy Judge President Ledwaba Malot, the judgment is dated 14 November 2013, wherein the judgment, Malot, a trust was created, wherein all the monies and assets belonging to accused number 1 were to be deposited into that particular trust, Malot. In particular, the trust is named Sechaba Trust Pty Limited. That was created already in 2013. So when the monies came in November this year, Malot, if the money belonged to accused number 1, they are supposed to be deposited into Sechaba Trust, which is not what was done, Malot. And my learned friend...
Why did they belong to accused number 1?
Sorry, Malot?
Why did they belong to accused number 1?
Because as we were told, Malot, those were the monies for his legal fees. So
does that mean they belong to him?
Yes, my lord. Because
so if you incur a debt, you go and buy a Rolls Royce, and I come along and I pay the debt, is it your money?
No, my lord.
So now?
No.
But said his mother sent the money, it was her money.
Yes.
And she sent it to, I don't know who it was. I don't know the facts of the matter. I've especially stayed out of it.
Yes. In terms of the court order.
Sorry?
Sorry, in terms of the court order, my lord. The one dated 14 November 2013.
Mr. Mashiani, can you just deal with the issue?
Yes.
You say the money is his.
Yes, my lord.
Why is it his?
Because they are to pay for his legal fees.
That's what I'm putting to you.
Yes.
The fact that money pays for your debt doesn't mean it's your money.
Yes, but...
Not yes, does it mean it's your money?
No, my lord.
So then how can you say it's his money?
In terms of the court order 14 November 2013, such monies are supposed to be deposited into the Sechaba Trust.
If they are his money.
My lord, in terms
Am
of...
I right?
Yes,
Well,
indeed.
How do you say they are his money?
Because the court order clearly stipulates.
Mr. Mashiani, the court order didn't deal with money that came in 2015.
Yes.
Why do you say money that came in 2015 to pay his debts belongs to him?
My lord, what I'm saying is...
Mr. Mashiani, can you just answer me? You said you ascertained facts.
Yes.
You said the facts show that the money is his. You are assuming the money is his because it paid his debt. I'm saying that assumption is wrong. That's what we're arguing about. And you refuse to deal with the issue.
It's not wrong, my lord.
Please deal with the issue.
It's not wrong, my lord.
Mr. Mashiani, please deal with why that issue is so.
Yes, I am dealing with the issue.
You are not, because you're avoiding the factual matter that I'm putting to you.
My lord, we know that money...
Don't point your fingers at me.
Sorry, my lord. That money, my lord, was claimed now by the legal representatives of accused number 1 as being the monies that were supposed to pay for his legal fees. That is the point. So it's not correct that the money was confiscated by the investigating officer, Captain Ramuhala. No, it's not correct.
Who was it confiscated by?
My lord, the money was frozen by Absa Bank.
Well, it doesn't matter who froze it.
Yes. But now, subsequent to that, the money was paid into the Sechaba Trust, not to the legal representatives of accused number 1, as we were told. It's not correct.
So you're saying he still doesn't have money?
He has got money in the sense that the legal representatives will claim the fees due to them from the Sechaba Trust. They haven't been given money as we were told earlier. And it was not by consent.
Given access to money.
They were given access to money, my lord. from the Sechaba Trust.
That's the problem, Mr. Mashiani. The problem is access to money to pay the bills.
Yes,
so
but
he says, today I'm happy, my bill will be paid.
Yes.
Therefore I will act.
But what
I'm happy that my bill will be paid, I
But
will
my,
not act.
but my lord, what we were told before this court is that the Captain Ramuhala or Colonel Ramuhala confiscated the money that was supposed to have paid for the legal fees, which is not correct.
No. What was told to me was that Captain, now Colonel Ramahala, was the person who was dealing with the issue and was telling the counsel for accused number one each day, don't worry, the money will come.
Which is not correct, my lord.
Well, that's a different matter.
Yes, which is not correct. The investigating officer in that particular docket is Captain Mabuti. It has nothing to do with Captain Ramuhala.
Colonel Ramahala.
Sorry, it has nothing to do with Colonel Ramuhala, my lord.
Who promoted him?
I'll take it, it will be the police commissioner.
Which one?
Commissioner Ria Pierre, my lord. So, my lord, Colonel Ramuhala is being dragged into the issues that had nothing to do with him at all. First of all, my lord, Absa Bank froze the money. And from there, it's being investigated by Captain Mabuti. It has nothing to do with Colonel Ramuhala. But today we have been told, no, Colonel Ramuhala has confiscated the money that was supposed to settle the legal fees. It's not correct. It's further not correct, my lord, that such monies were handed to accused number one's legal representative as per consent. It's not correct, my lord. There is a court order, my lord. It's dated 13 November 2013, my lord. Which court order, my lord, clearly stipulates that such monies are to be transferred into Sechaba Trust so that whenever there's a claim by accused number one or his legal representative for the fees due, the claim will be done from the Sechaba Trust. So to be told, my lord, today that, no, Colonel Ramuhala intercepted the money and he took long to pay it over is not correct, my lord.
You're dealing with a different court order.
But that is the court order.
You're dealing with a 2013 court order.
No. But my lord, yes.
The money that was arrived to pay the lawyers currently for accused one came from his mother, so presumably they were his mother's money.
Yes, my lord.
And they were somehow intercepted and taken by someone. You say it was the bank.
Yes, my
By
lord.
themselves they did this.
No, the
bank just did it by itself.
No, my lord. The banks have got this court order dated 14 November 2013.
So when money goes into my bank account, they can just decide that it belongs to accused number one and seize it. Is that what you're saying?
They will.
The bank did.
No, they will freeze the money, investigate the money, and if indeed they establish the money is for accused number one, they will transfer the money into Sechaba Trust because they've got that court order. Which is what happened here, my lord.
It wasn't there an urgent application heard by Mapasela J on Friday?
Yes.
And what happened there?
The learned Judge Mabesela ordered that such monies be transferred into Sechaba Trust.
By consent?
No, man. Well, by consent, but there is a court order to that effect.
What do you mean?
My lord, I mean, the court made that order to say those monies are to be transferred into Sechaba Trust.
But arrangements were made that Mr. Krejcir can withdraw his money. That's the point.
Yes. But now...
So in other words, he didn't have money on day one, and on day two he had money.
That I agree with.
Arguing a different...
That
didn't happen exactly the way he said it?
Yes, because it's now...
in a slightly different way.
It's not slightly different, very different, my lord. Because now Colonel Ramuhala is being dragged into...
Mr. Mashiku, sorry?
Colonel Ramuhala is being dragged into this matter to show that he deliberately obstructed accused number one from preparing his case, my lord, which I submit is not correct. So, what
I dealing with a different issue, which was that every day Colonel Ramahala was leading accused one's counsel on.
No, man.
Don't worry, don't bring an application, you'll get the money tomorrow. Don't worry, don't bring
No, my lord. According to my instructions, my learned friend for accused number 1 was dealing directly with the investigating officer in that matter.
Never dealt with Colonel Ramahala.
Not necessarily never.
No, never, because you said he had nothing to do with it.
Insofar as the release of the money, never, yes.
I don't like the way that you keep pointing.
Sorry, my lord. Insofar as the release of the money, my instructions are he never dealt with Colonel Ramahala.
And before that?
Before that,
while the accused was being held off from being the urgent.
Maybe I don't understand the court on that question, my lord, with due respect.
The accused needed to bring an urgent application to get the money back.
Yes.
Because they weren't handing it over.
Yes.
But he didn't bring it.
Yes.
So he says, the reason I didn't bring it is because whenever I was threatened the application, I was told, don't worry, you don't need the application, you will get the money tomorrow.
But
no, and that was ascribed to Colonel Ramahala.
That is not correct. That is the point, my lord.
So who was it ascribed to?
No, the matter was being dealt with by Captain Mabuti, my lord.
And is he the one who kept saying, don't worry, don't bring an urgent application, I'll help you, you'll get your money tomorrow?
No, my lord.
You didn't say that?
No, my lord.
Never?
No, my lord.
Never?
No, my lord.
Anyway, yes.
Therefore, my lord, the point I'm making, my lord, is the basis upon which my learned friend made the application today. It's not correct.
Well, is it not true that money came for his defense somewhere around about the 30th of October?
That is true, my lord.
And is it not true that the accused couldn't get hold of the money to pay his lawyers until Friday last week?
That is true, my lord.
Well, that's the point. In other words, when must he instruct counsel? When must he deal with his matter? How must he deal with the matter? How can he even take the appointment until he's got funds?
But
that's the point.
That is the point. I agree.
That's the simple point Mr. Krejcir raises.
No,
with a lot of detail that you dispute.
Yes, the details are not true, because.
Yes, but the facts are the substantial effect of the facts is that accused one was unable to prepare for today because he didn't have access to his funds. That's the simple fact.
But that had nothing to do with the investigating officer in this matter,
so it was
Colonel Ramahala.
It was due to the lightning. It struck the same rock that it always strikes by accident.
No, my lord. That is the point I'm raising with this court to say. It's not correct. I don't know if that was done deliberately because the court had already made a finding against Colonel Ramahala. Which is the problem, which is my problem, my lord. I respectfully submit.
Sorry, I don't understand the submission.
Colonel Ramahala was dragged into this matter. Deliberately so, because the court... Sorry, my lord. By my learned friend for number 1.
Why?
Because the court had already made a finding against Colonel Ramahala. Which is the problem, my lord. We cannot each time when we encounter problems, then point a finger at Colonel Ramahala. This has got nothing to do with him. Nothing at all, my lord.
So then let's just deal with the real issue in the case. The real issue in the case, as far as one is concerned, there are 2 issues.
Yes.
One, he needs medical reports that he hasn't got and can't get.
Yes, ma'am.
And 2, he didn't have money until Friday.
Yes, ma'am.
3, and because of not having money, he hasn't got counsel, he hasn't briefed counsel, all of these things. So he says he'll be ready when? 1st of December. I think it's the 1st of December that week.
I think they said the first week, man.
The first week in December, whatever the week.
The last week of term, which
he mentioned not the. I think it's the first week in December.
No, it's the week starting on the 7th, if I'm not mistaken, my lord.
Well, let's just find out exactly which week, Mr. Perrin.
My lord, indeed, the last week of term, which is the week of the 7th of December, which we can understand both Mr. Mashiani and Advocate.
I didn't ask you for a whole speech, I asked you what week. Yes.
Yes, that is the week starting the 7th, man.
So he's asking for 3 weeks. For 2 weeks.
For 2 weeks, ma'am.
So what do you say about 2 weeks? Bearing in mind the other complications.
What other complications, if I may ask, ma'am?
Reports are late. Accused 2 hasn't seen the report. Accused for 3, 4, 5, 6 has only seen 2 of them. Yeah.
But they indicated they are ready to proceed, my lord, and I've already handed them the reports.
Yes, and what am I going to do? Proceed with one accused and postpone for the
No,
other?
no, I'm not saying that. Exactly. All I'm saying is we give them opportunity to read the reports, and then we proceed whenever they should indicate
well, it's not going to be now. Sorry, Mr. Mashin. Sorry, Mr. Mishin.
I was saying, my lord, they can enlighten us as to how long they will need to prepare, my lord.
Well, they want the witnesses here. They want time to read the report, time to get whatever witnesses they want. Accused 1 wants his records, and he wants to get counsel.
Well, then, my lord, I'm in the court's hands insofar as that date is concerned, my lord. But I would still...
I'm just putting to you that there's more than one problem over here.
Yes, I understand that, my lord. That I understand very well.
Yeah, sorry. You finished saying what you wanted to say?
No, my lord, I'm finished. Mr. Court, please.
Rovan, you want to answer the second answer or the third answer, whatever it is over here?
With regard to
whatever's now been raised, do you want to say anything, or are you done with saying?
No, I don't submit that it's really necessary.